Welcome everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday, the 7th of June, 2026. This is our 30th dedicated monthly question and answer session. The format will be question and answers and then followed by a Palestine update, which will be on Zoom only and later on Rumble. We invite you to send questions. You can submit them directly in our Telegram channel, on our chat within our Zoom session, and alternatively, although there's no guarantee we can get through to it, on the YouTube channel in the comments. And we do encourage people to jump on the mic. If you just raise your hand in the Zoom, we can let you on the mic so you can ask any questions you like. Okay, so we'll kick off the question and answers. I'll start with any questions that have been submitted previously. Bear with me a second. And if anyone, as I say, if anyone wants to speak, don't be shy. We only ask that if you have questions, try to be as clear as possible. And in addition, if you can provide any evidences you rely on, any context, that would be most helpful. Okay. Here's one question. Somebody submitted this. Is tasarruf al-awliya fi al-qawn possible only for living awliya, or can it be applied to deceased awliya by Allah's position? How should this be understood without compromising Tawheed?
Neither is for Ahya or Amwat any tasarruf that some people claim, in the sense that
before you start, if you can clarify the terminology used as well, tasarruf, etc., etc. So there's no
that one close to Allah can manage in the universe, can respond to dua, things like that. That's most likely just imagination. It depends on, obviously, the living people can make their tasarruf depending upon the physical capabilities and so on, but within the system of the universe, within, so nobody discusses that for living. So if someone is drowning and call the people on the coastal side, let's take that example. Let's have a specific example, so things do not stay abstract. And he calls for help toward them. That has nothing to do with believing them to be divine or able to manage the universe independently of being creator or being lords beside Allah or anything like that. It's just because they can throw to him a raft or a rope or something he can hang on. Okay, so that's it. Now, if he calls on someone who is dead, not present, Abdul Qadir Jilani, help, for example, someone's drowning, nobody is the coastal side. The question arises, what is his belief in Abdul Qadir Jilani? So clearly Abdul Qadir is not present. That's noticed by the Wahhabis, which is a correct notice. Normally, if someone is calling like that, Sayyid Abdul Qadir or something like that, in most common people, it's just a verbal reaction which have been from childhood, rose up without really thinking very much about it. But it seems to implies that, first of all, that his call reaches Abdul Qadir. So Abdul Qadir is somehow able to hear while being dead, meaning his soul or his personality or whatever you call it, his spirit or his nafs is still somewhere, but not in a dormant state until Yawm al-Qiyamah, like most people who are dead. Allegedly, there's some awliya that we follow the prophets, we know that they are alive in the grave, or they become alive if someone passes and says salam to them or something. They have a speciality. Also for the shuhada, according to the Quran, they are not dead now, they are alive at their Lord now, before Yawm al-Qiyamah. So someone could deduce there's some kind of life, but does this mean that they are aware? For example, in the case of the shuhada of Uhud, they according to the hadith, and the Quran certifies that, they found such a reception, it was beyond their imagination. So said, who will tell our people in our behalf that they should not be afraid of death in the case of martyrdom, because what the grace you receive is unbelievable. And Allah told them, spoke to them, said, I will do it in your behalf, and He revealed the ayahs. لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم. Don't think those who have been martyred in the sake of Allah dead, rather they're alive at their Lord, being now receiving rizq, receiving special treatment. So they were not able to communicate with the people, even visit them in dreams and things like that. So so that's what established by necessity of reason and perception, and also the Quran confirmed it in that sense. Question: if someone calls on the Prophet, it seems to be on one wali like Abdul Qadir. That's most common. They got Abdul Qadir is like the biggest wali generally for most Sufi sections. Yeah, there's a Shadri, there's a Naqshbandi, but Abdul Qadir is agreed by all of them essentially as being the biggest one. Okay, the Qadir Jilani. And then we have to ask which belief is behind that. If he believes that he hears by empowerment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like what we established for prophets when they addressed with salam or salah from far away or nearby, then this is a claim without any evidence. It may be, maybe not. The fact that it's possible within the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not indicate that you can rely on that unless you have an evidence. So that's one. Secondly, the act they can they act appropriately? In the case of Prophet, all what has been said is that he will return the salam. That's all. No more than that. There are some stories. Ibn Qayyim, who is really regarded like Ibn Taymiyyah and one founder of Wahhabism in that sense, quotes the story of one Bedouin who came to the noble grave, that's long after the Prophet, and bystander witnessed the story and reported. And he reported the story as if he's believing it, doesn't see any problem with it. And he came to verse say Allah said to the people when you were alive, when they went to the Prophet, so he will make istighfar for you, he will be forgiven. So I'm coming to you to make istighfar for me. Hopefully you can make it. So look at the language. Make istighfar in my behalf. And then he went. Obviously, no response came from the grave. Nobody heard anything. And then the man reported later that he was visited in the dream by an entity, an angel, telling him, the Messenger of Allah made istighfar for you and you have been forgiven by intercession. So this is another form, which seems to be, but this is obviously not a hadith. This is people claiming a story about vision and dreams. If you want to like it or leave it, Ibn Qayyim quoted without any problem. No problem. So far, good. The other things are just obscure. Nobody is just a claim without any evidence. If it gets to the level that claim they have independent authority, Allah gave them independent authority, so they can manage according to their own vision or their own ijtihadat. So they have intrinsic sovereignty. This is first rationally impossible, because the divine sovereignty in that case is based on being his necessary existing, not anything else. It's not a matter of choice. And I said necessary existence, being Hayy Qayyum, enforces that by necessity. It cannot be transferred. The same with legislative power. So commanding power this way, the ultimate sovereign one, and also legislative power, the ultimate sovereign, cannot be transferred. So when the Jews and Christians say about the monks and scribe that they can legislate, usually they say, oh, that's because Isa gave Peter, gave him what you tie in earth will be tied in heaven. Oh, this is an obscure statement. Does not mean that he can legislate in that sense, but they interpreted that he has the right for legislation, that he can, like in the Acts of the Apostles, later on, he saw a dream that lizard and so on, which are prohibited for the Jews strictly, are okay, halal, khalas. So that was abrogating, allegedly for them. So he has somehow the power but it was given later for the Pope, much later, but before that for the council. So if the council agree, then because the Holy Spirit is present, they support them. But if you go to the fundamental definition of what is the meaning of Allah being necessarily existing, this is intrinsic capability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by being eternal and necessarily existing. Not, and this is not transferable. This meaning that he makes you a divine being beside him, but this is impossible. There's no way a divine being can be created or divinity can transfer to another entity. In that, this is clear kufr and out of Islam. But some people think it may be transferable. And that in that case, I think the issue of legislation, which seems to be relatively minor, because in case of legislation, we have the empowerment to make ijtihad to deduce from the revelation. So it looks like if a legislation transferring the power of ijtihad based on revelation, giving the power of ijtihad based on revelation seems to be easier to comprehend than giving the power, for example, if you or someone calling you who is drowning, that you save him from drowning by metaphysical force. Look much further away as a possibility. And if the first one is negated by the Quran, and by this adaptation that they can legislate, and the Messiah ibn Maryam for other reasons that وما أمروا ليعبدوا إلها واحد. They have commanded to enslave themselves to one divine being, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Simply because it's not possible to transfer even the power of command. It's not possible to transfer the power of command. Yeah, it's not. Although the power of command or legislation, people could do legislate outside the Sharia if they have no messenger. The time between two messengers, they are not addressed. So Allah is leaving them alone, meaning He is not addressing them or anything. They will legislate for their life according to their needs and so on, according to their rationality, desires, and so on. And Allah does not interfere, nor punish and account for that, because He did not address with the messenger. Because of that, the moment a messenger comes, this finished. Even leaving alone is finished. So if we take all these evidences, that's all nonsense. That's all nonsense with the tasarruf fil kawn, neither for alive or dead. For alive, tasarruf, normal tasarruf within the law of nature, like for example, someone at the coastal side and someone is drowning, please help me, because this, this man may have, could possibly, maybe you don't see the raft and the rope, but usually if someone having dressed for swimming as on the seaside, you expect him to have maybe a raft or a swimming suit or something like that. He can throw to you, or he can jump and swim to you and pull you. Maybe he's dedicated for this job. Many beaches are having like a small tower and guards there who will jump quickly and save people. That's happening. I have seen such an example in Beirut in the 60s. I was witness for that. Not for the cold, but for getting a man and then putting him upside down until he emptied their belly and so on, he remained alive. So if this man called before that, this is natural. This is according to natural law in the universe. These on the coast could help. So I would say all of this tasarruf in the kawn, neither for the living nor for the dead. Honestly, neither for the present or absent, but for the present with things which within the natural cause and effect in the universe, it's okay because it's expected. And this has nothing to do with the issue of divinity. If it is not to someone is present, then the question is, what's creed before that? You could not call an Abdul Qadir Jilani, maybe, unless it's a habit, like many people are grown up with that. So just like many Christians, even some who are even almost secular, they say, when they are shocked, say Jesus Christ or oh God. That's just a code. This is just a verbal expression of surprise or something. That we can't ignore. I mean, really based on the belief of tasarruf. So the reality of the thing is that nobody has tasarruf in the Quran in the sense of based on primary necessity of reason for his own being, except Allah. The same with legislation. Others could be given power. Normally what we see in the universe, what the Quran testify and all history testify, is that within a certain limitation for the usual tasarruf in the Quran is within cause and effect and so on, like throwing a raft, pulling a rope. But that's only for some present. So if you're giving the example of the drowning man, I'm taking an extreme example because someone is almost in the death agony. You would expect him to scream for any help. He will call the people on the coastal side. That makes good sense, no problem, because they could save, they could throw something, they could jump and swim. He doesn't know if they have that at the moment, but is it to be expected? Because the system of affairs work this way. But someone absent, how can he hear you and so on? Usually there's some kind of a bad belief behind that. And this should be not accepted, should be exterminated. Unless an evidence case otherwise, like from the case of the Prophet, that he can respond with a salam, like even the shuhada in that story or that hadith confirmed by ayah, Allah reported in their behalf. Say, I will report on your behalf. You cannot report. There are reports about visions and dreams and so on, like this vision of this area, this Bedouin who came asking, but he asked specifically to make istighfar for him, not to forgive him. He doesn't believe the Prophet had a power of forgiveness. No, he said, the Quran says, if they have committed the sin or transgressed against them, if they have come to you and ask you to make istighfar for them, they would find Allah forgiveness and merciful. We have to come and ask you. So the Bedouin is addressing that to the first point. That makes sense. So Ibn Qayyim did not object to that and mentioned the story as a good example. Although he should have, because a student of Ibn Taymiyyah went to extreme in issues of tawassul and things like that. Anything else does not have to have any evidence from revelation, because it's something metaphysical. Physical, we have the physical evidence. So we don't need to talk about it, because it's dictated by necessity of reason. We see it. We see very well. I mentioned the case of drowning was an extreme case, but even if you're working on something and you notice that you are missing you have your tool case, and then you notice that you need a tool which is not, or a tool is missing and is used by one of, like in a building, for example. They tell him, hey, give me that tool, I need it right now. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the issue of divinity and tawassul, because you know he has the tool and you're working together in the building. But I took the example of drowning as different, because you don't necessarily know that he have a raft or a rope and so on, but he may have it, and he may have the capability to do that, according to the system of the universe. So I think this question should be settled this way, going from the fundamental points and building up. And any statement otherwise, like the one after the claim attributed to Khomeini, that he said, we believe that our imams have a control over that. If he is the one saying that, because he maybe quoted some previous people or something like that, because it doesn't seem to be that he's the way he thinks. That seems to be maybe he quoting some akhbari. Akhbari are having this such things, such nonsensical things. I don't think Khomeini is either. And also, there's some people claim that the translation, which contains that in Arabic, is a false translation, a fabrication. I'm not going to comment. Did Khomeini say it or not? If he say it based on a certain belief and so on, then this belief is wrong, manifestly wrong, and he got it wrong based on some stupid evidences or pseudo evidences, but nothing which stand real scrutiny. I mean, a Quran. Well-established tradition from the previous prophets, accumulated and confirmed by all books, not by only one, because the previous books we cannot trust bit by bit, but we can trust the totality, that at least this thread of Tawheed is generally well-established there, which is true. But the details here and there are different, because fabrication and belief should happen there. The same with the Sunnah. If the Sunnah mutawatira, then we can really trust. If it's not mutawatira, if in the balance seems to be good and doesn't contradict anything else, and coming at least from two Sahaba and more, then we can say it is well established beyond reasonable doubt, but not beyond possible doubt. Close to certitude, but not with certitude. If someone rejects, this is a matter of aqidah, I'm not going to rely on it, we cannot blame him. He has all the authority to say that. So I hope this is a little bit expanded, but it's getting the matter to its root, instead of attacking each other and you are mushrik and you believe in this. But it is generally the confused belief behind that by akhbari and by some Sufi and so on, Sunnah, is very obscure and very questionable. Usually they say, if you dig with them, say, oh, this is a power given to him by Allah. But how do you know that is power given? What is your evidence that's being given? Because that's not the normal course of things in the universe. And in some places, they attribute power which contradicts clearly what has been established for the history of the prophets and in the Quran for Muhammad. So when he says, he is the one who knows the unseen, that's beyond human perception. Here, the ghaib, the absolute ghaib, beyond any other being perception. And he does not allow anyone to look at this absolute ghaib, except some messenger, and even there, there will be observation for him, rasad. There will be guards front and back, watching carefully that he report that within this limitation exactly, not adding or subtracting. This could be also a metaphorical expression for that they were made unfallible, so that if they report from this absolute ghaib, they will report in such a way that it is correct, even if it's in a metaphorical expression or allegorical and so on. But will be befitting, while scholars and other people may express it in a wrong way, in good faith, by ijtihad, mistake ijtihad. So if a messenger reports about Allah's attributes, for example, that's absolute ghaib, obviously he uses a metaphorical and symbolic language sometimes. Then this is by divine protection, you are guaranteed that this is the fact as it is at face, or as pointed also by the meaning, after deep philosophical analysis if necessary. Yeah. That's this type of ghaib. So even that is accessible only to messengers who are completely under guard, that they will report the message. So he knows that they reported the message of their Lord accurately as possible with human language. It's going to be this quotation, not like what dumb Ahlul Hadith, I think, and he has a comprehensive knowledgeable about their situation, and he has a complete control of all counts and accounting. So even this. So if you apply that to this tasarruf al-kawn require that, possibly in that sense that Sufi and so on believe, requires access to knowledge which may be of absolute ghaib. Because communicating from such far away, obviously beyond the natural communication means available in the universe, may be impossible without a special authorization from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if possible at all to authorize. And then the question arises, why don't ask Allah directly? Why this person? Especially if the form of the question very offensive, like, oh, Messenger of Allah, help me. Or Sheikh Abdul Qadir, help me. It's not like that Bedouin who came to the grave. First, he came to the grave because of his in simple-minded ways. The messenger is there in the grave somehow. Yeah, okay, that's natural. That's natural. But he asked him specifically to make istighfar for him. He did not say, forgive me. So even the simple Bedouin, which is, I think, completely right, and Qayyim is right to praise this. Although they say this is not this is a claim about dreams and visions and so on. We cannot, if you would like to trust it, you can leave it. But you can take a hint for some dreams and vision sound reasonable and credible. One of my favorites is that Hassan ibn Salih ibn Hayy and one of his friends, they made a covenant with each other. So whoever dies before the other one promises the other one that he will ask for permission to visit the remaining one in dream and tell him what he suffered, what was the questioning in the grave, and what he met with his Lord. That's how it's reported from the one who survived. The one who survived, who is also a well-respected, completely reliable muhaddith. Hassan ibn Salih is beyond any reproach. Although some people attack him because he was a revolutionary. He believes you can't fight rulers. Believe the correct one. And those sycophants, they want to prostrate against the tyrants. They say he advocates using the sword and point to their neck. No, you can say whatever you want. And the Hafiz ibn Hajar, for defending him, said this was the old madhab, but now ijma' is against that. We are not answering to the Hafiz now. That his ijma' is faulty and irrelevant and not binding. But anyway, Al-Hassan ibn Salih and his brother Ali ibn Salih and their mother, they were, when all the three were alive, they decided, Ali is I think younger or older than him. Anyway, the three decided that their house should be house of devotion completely. So they divided night in 3/3. 1/3 for the mother, 1/3 for Ali, and 1/3 for Hassan ibn Salih. Then the mother passed away. As usually, mother will pass away ahead of the children, normally. except in accident and so on. Okay. Then they say, we cannot violate that system. You show that he's very tough in rituals. So he agreed with his brother Ali to divide the night in half. You take a half, I take half. So the night is alive with prayers in our house. Ali passed away. Now Hassan is stuck. So he's praying all night, achieving this tradition. So what they call it in the Arabic language of من العباد الخشن, one of those who stick to rituals in a tough way, very tough, nasik or abid or whatever shabab. So this is Hassan ibn Salih, and also revolutionary. And this friend, similarly, also most like a من الخشن, like him, also tough like him, a ritual. So they were interested to see what will happen. So the survivor one reports, I'm just mentioning this dream just for enjoyment, has nothing to do with the question. Said 1 year passed, 2 years passed, until he almost gave the hope. And then he got a vision. He said, report. And I think the man can be trusted to be truthful. And I think the vision is a true vision. It's not his underconscious talking to him, because the content of here contradicts their theory about worship and so on, and their behavior. And then Hassan Salih came to him in the vision. And they say, you delayed too much. What happened to you? He said, I asked permission. As promised, the moment I passed there, I promised and so on, please give me permission. See, I was not granted permission until this moment. I don't know why. I'm now granted the permission. Say, what suffered through and so on. See, I'll give you the summary. Matters are much easier than people think. We are going to extreme, expecting too much punishment and too much accountability. Is as long as obviously you have basic Islam and basic belief and basic fundamental deed and avoiding the kabair, as the Quran says, really. So they wanted the extremely high ranks, okay. But so for the general public, for everyone, tell the people that they should not do like we have did. The matter is much easier because they were doing it out of fear of the accountability and so on. But they should not be complacent in the sense that they start neglecting the fara'id, committing kabair. Then you are in danger. And obviously he told details about things we don't know. What here. So such a vision, you could say, okay, I'm just indulging a little bit in vision. Let me enjoy a little bit. A bit of spirituality without evidence. That's not an evidence for anything. So, because the response is not that what the remaining one, I don't remember his name, and Hassan Saleh all their life were advocating to be extremely tough, to the level that he was not attending Jum'ah because he does not believe those imams are worth playing behind them. Such a toughness is not required for saving. Maybe you achieve higher ranks, that's something else, but that's not what all humanity addressed. This to the basic. وما أمروا لا يعبدوا الله مخلصين له الدين وحنفاء ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة وذلك دين القيم. The mushrikeen and the Ahl Kitab were commanded only to worship Allah, to enslave themselves, worship Allah exclusively, alone, no association, no shirk, and establish prayer and give zakat. And this is the deen al-qayyim. This is the right religion. That's all what you need. That's it. That's it. No more than that. That's all that's required for everyone. And it's enough for saving. You want to accelerate in other things, see where you can excel and you can accelerate. That's the content. And there's a good content, which contradicts their way of being extremely tough and extreme. So you would say it's very difficult to imagine that's coming from the subconscious of the one surviving, obviously. It's extremely difficult to understand. So most likely it's a true dream. Yeah, conclude like that. Another one nice dream is also give some good tidings. One who was devoted all his life to teaching Quran and teaching children. One also of personalities of Tabi'in or Tabi'in. And then he died. And then one of his friends and relatives, also a pious man, a reliable man, say after some time, not immediately, I saw him in the vision. And say, what happened to you? Say, exactly as the Messenger of Allah told us. Two horrifying creatures came to me, Munkar and Nakir, sat me up, and also the sun seemed to be setting. I knew that I didn't ask for say, so okay, what you are coming for? So he had the courage to say that. they say, Man Rabbuk, say, listen. Say, I told them, listen, I know these answers to these things that I'm teaching the children for 40 years, and you come to ask me that now? So they look to each other, say, we're in the wrong place, and they left. Anyway, it's a funny story, but it shows you that some people are so deep in Iman and devoting their life for scholarship and teaching. The others say, which kind of question? They ask more than that. I'm teaching the children for 40 years the same thing. No, you can say the surviving one, there was no covenant between them or anything. That's happened accidentally. He was surprised to see him. You could say this is also a true dream. Allah wanted to send a message that the one who all their life firm in this belief and know what they are doing and they're complying really with what Allah has commanded, they will be safe from Munkar Nakir. You don't need to be terrified, but be here so that you can answer this way. You have the courage to answer this way. Yeah. Obviously, the hadith says, the believer will say, he's the messenger, my Lord is Allah. Obviously, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and I am happy with Islam. Islam is my deen, and they will go away. But this one did not even answer. Say, this is so trivial. Ask something more. So this is a higher level of conviction. Okay, you can take this. I'm not saying that's an evidence. Or you go back to origin problem. All these tasarruf, living and dead is irrelevant. The main distinction between living and the dead is completely irrelevant. That's it. If Abdul Qadir Jani, if you're on time Abdul Qadir and he's the coastal and you're drowning, then you're calling with you will not usually say recognizing Abdul Qadir. You're in drowning, I'm going to say, oh, please help me throw a rope. That's what you do. You will not even mention the name of Abdul Qadir. You scream to all the people without even knowing their name. You don't need to do their name. They don't need Abdul Qadir or Muhammad al-Mas'ari or anybody else. So the whole issue has been messed up. The Wahhabi messed it up by making that too extreme that it is immediately kufr and he's mushrik and kafir, etc., etc. That's going to extremes and making assumption which shows that they are not understanding deep and analyzing every situation on its own merit. That's their problem. That's their problem. But basically, yeah, this smells at face as if it is shirk. And could be shirk. It could be just people brought up with, but uttering things which is completely irrelevant. And if you dig, I said, with the common people, say, oh, Sheikh Abdul Qadir is the wali, the Ghawth al-Akbar, the great savior, and Allah gave him this power, this power. There are some people so extreme. I hear that, I didn't hear it by myself. Someone reported me that wife of so-and-so person living in East London were discussing this issue and said, oh, if you call Abdul Qadir, he will get to help you. Even Allah will not prevent that because he's afraid of Abdul Qadir. That's clear shirk and kufr. We are out. Abdul Qadir is even terrifying Allah. Allah has to comply what he wants. And out. Red card, out. It's really painful to see that. Now, that's now. I hear this story here for someone living now. I don't know if he's alive now or the people, but here. 10, 15 years ago. It was a state of shock. I couldn't even imagine anyone belonging to Islam have such an idea. But from Indo-Pakistan, many have penetrated with Hindu points of view, and which you don't know who is God and he is not God, because essentially there's some kind of a secret pantheism behind them. For example, some of the peers and the ancient pundits and so on, they go and indulge in rituals for 1,000 years standing on 1 feet. Imagine studying, obviously it's all khurafat. And this way they enforce on Brahma something. He has to comply what they ask. So somehow they have some kind of divine secret in their being. How can you enforce on Brahma who's supposed to be the chief god something? And then all these stories develop into a complete world of imagination and unbelievable stories. If we get time, I'll mention one of these stories, how Durga emerged and so on. But later, now next question.
Okay. Next question. Are you familiar with this Egyptian scholar, Dr. Hassan Ashafi? Are you familiar with his life and works? Does he seem pious and knowledgeable?
If you are familiar, I'm not familiar with him, so I cannot. Okay.
Okay, that's
Get
fine.
out of the mentality to ask someone to recommend someone else. Summarize his life and so on. And
We're saying that he's a
obviously,
he's a scholar of Kalam and has addressed issues related to feminism as well as an Egyptian named Muhammad Shamsuddin. Also despite some anyways,
we don't know
famous.
about piety. We cannot. This is hidden between him and Allah. All what we know is that what he argues and his arguments seem structured. That seems to is there, for example, something which appear for that the one asking to be odd. So we discuss that specific point and see maybe he is right and we are wrong and so on. That's a good question. But the summary recommendation, like what have been the case of many people, hadith, is this one from Al Sunnah? Is he acceptable? Is he thicker? Based on just waving arguments like that, that's a dangerous way to go.
Well, to the question of if they have any of his points of views, send them over.
Yeah, if there's any, why? But he must be asking for some reason. Either some of his views are very strange, discussing with feminists, or something that may be very well structured, and he's admiring it. We'll see. But he wants to have a second opinion. That's a good discussion. I was just waving like Madkhali, for example. They declared their Rabi' Madkhali. They called him Imam al-Jarh al-Ta'deel, the leader of justification and injuring. So that if he says about someone that he's bad or his creed is questionable, then khalas, he's the authority. So it's clearly people are making tazkiyah to each other. His follower make tazkiyah to him that he is the leader, and whatever he does not do tazkiyah, he's outside the fold, or he's mubtadi', or he's something like that.
They should stop the
But if you know the reality of Rabi' al-Madkhali, he died now. I don't know where he is now. Or Allah will treat him the way he deserves. I know more than I can say. If they knew, I don't, maybe they even know, if they knew that he was working with the Mabahith, secret service, like a security, state security, not external services that you could say they're watching foreign powers and kafir and so on, maybe you can argue, but internally spying on Muslims and but with a salary there, then you know which kind of person you're dealing with. The best what can be said that they believe this spying is okay to protect the dawla and so on and so. That's the best you can say. The other one, they know it is not okay, but they don't care. And they out for the money and so on. So this is a wrong point of view, which can be refuted, must be refuted, or he doesn't care. He's a spy. He's a man of dunya. We don't know. And this for the Madkhali and the Jami is Imam al-Jarh al-Ta'deel in this asr, in our time. Imagine that. So this mentality was asking, what do you think about this man? Do you certify him? No. I'm not going to certify anybody or not certify anybody. Bring some point of view, what he says and so on, or some behavior, like Ben Baya, being like stooge at the Emirat and so on, all his behavior smells for nifaq and complacency. That's what we see external. Internally, maybe he believes that's the right way of doing things because he has so few point of view. Then we have to see the points where he's building on it and refute it. Or maybe he's just a traitor, a money maker, a money grabber. We leave that to Allah. But definitely he is not to take as example because of that. Not because he's from Maghrib or because he's blonde or because he's black or something like that. And because specific fatwas and points which we can refute. Or it doesn't bring it to the evidence which is satisfactory. Okay? Next, no, I don't know Hadith Hassan Shafi'i. If he's working with Kalam and so on, usually it will be like classical Shafi'i madhab ilm al-Kalam. Even his name, many in Egypt call it Shafi'i, not that they have any genealogical relation, but because their grandfather announced that he owned a Shafi'i madhab. Most Egyptians own Shafi'i madhab anyway.
So the question, if you have some details, send it over, inshallah.
Yeah.
We might be pleasantly surprised, but maybe he has some.
Maybe he's an excellent person. We have ignored, and he has some good arguments and some good developments which we can digest and absorb. Yeah, we want any.
So like Muhammad Hijab is coming up, some excellent stuff. He did a long.
So many minds to work.
Like Muhammad Hijab did an entire series on feminism, on sapience, and he's been doing one on Kalam as well. So there's the brains out there, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
It all helps, inshallah. And also, like recently, that sister Cora, she was having a discussion with Christians.
Oh yeah.
Smashing the floor with them. This is all needed. And again, following on from last week as well, people who are contracting
Even for example, Lily J, which is doesn't have hijab, but some people object for that. And even I have a discussion with him, Shawar. I don't mention his name. He knows if he's listening to us now. About she said she has in her channel still her old videos when she was dancing and so on. It's almost like complete debauchery and so on. And she did not remove it. I said, maybe she leave it deliberately so that if anyone says, you will say, yeah, I was like that, but I am not like that now. She will regard that as a tool of da'wah. And this is past. Khalas. Denying the past of the covering it up is not a good sign. Open it. Yeah, I was like that. Like someone was arguing with Umar. And he said, there are some people who are much more better than you 1,000 times. Umar was angry at first. Then he said, what do you mean? He said, Abu Bakr, for example, say, yes, you are absolutely right. Abu Bakr was so perfumed, so zaki, when it was like a donkey. Because everyone knew he was a donkey for that. Was a drunkard and was fornicator and so on. And he knows most of the prostitutes from Mecca. So that's ended. He didn't cover it. He never intended to cover. So maybe this now that she's not wearing hijab. Yes, we may. Maybe she's on the madhab that khimar is not obligatory, is only desirable. That's a minority madhab, but it's there because the text of the Quran there's no such an obligation, and there's a sin or harm in that. Only based on the two hadith and the Ibn Abbas explanation. For me, this is good enough. These three plus the ayah to turn it from high desirability into obligation, but it's not qat'i. Let me say it frankly, it's not qat'i. I would advise her against that she should have, and they will help her to design something which is really look fashionable, extremely fashionable, and perfectly with khimar and jilbab in perfect. I was discussing with Akasha that they should check various types of Islamic dress currently called Islamic dress, like for example the Iranian shadur is miserable. You cannot keep it fixed unless you vise it through your teeth. Which kind of jilbab is that, for God's sake? And in my old videos, I talked about the Najdi jilbab, which is so fluffy. And I use this sentence. The slightest one, if you need to run, for example, behind the child, the jilbab, because it's open, it doesn't have a zip. It flies behind here, say exactly like the coat of Dracula in the Dracula movies. Many people are upset about that, but it's reality. That's not a good jilbab. It may fulfill the basic of Sharia, but it's go to extreme in fluffiness. It's become a joke, which shows a mentality of extremism in religion. And this is a disease we should fight. While the Syrian jilbab is much more better with an ops or with a zip. If it's open, by design, it is not open like Egyptian jilbab, especially in the village. Jalabiya jilbab, that's you wear like a dress from the top. But that's you don't have this problem as long as it is and it's reasonably fluffy. That's a good jilbab, a reasonable jilbab. I could even, I thought, Akash, maybe one day for fun, I will sit with him a couple of hours, see various types of existing jilbab and various types of Western dress which can be developed further and be referred to a jilbab and make like jilbab fashion and jilbab with khimar. And I'm proposing, that's an opportunity. I'm proposing instead of using the word hijab, the hijab is wrong, should be avoided. Hijab is only for the wife of the boss. Because hijab is a complete seal, like a wall. You don't see the entity at all, but you may hear it, but you don't see it. That's obligatory for the wife of Prophet. But for the others, it is jilbab and khimar. If it's obligatory, okay? And jilbab is even more obligatory, or obligatory, while khimar may be desirable. But I think both are obligatory for various needs, and we'll discuss in specific writing now, inshallah, qariban. But so the زي الشرعي, the Sharia injunction of Islamic dress for women is jilbab plus khimar. Now we can connect to these words, take from jilbab, jil, jim and lam, and for khimar, mim alif ra, mar, khimar, mar, jelmar. So we invent a new word called jilmar. That's the Islamic dress, not hijab. Avoid hijab should be forsaken because it's bringing wrong association to the wife of the Prophet. And this wrong association is active by the lot of fact and missed a lot of fiqh. Missed a lot of fiqh. But let's go back to the point. So to the women in da'wah, which is now a current discussion, hot discussion for the coming few weeks and maybe months. Even religion is a great asset. And she addresses a wide section of people. Now, this one who came against what's the name of that lady who defeated 20 Christian girls? Korah. He came against Korah now with a video, and he was debating with Muhammad Hijab about that in English, I think, and because he's English speaker. And for that, Okasha prepared an AI response taken from our things, added a few things and so on. A mild one, not sharp, like usually I'm relatively sharp and harsh. But I discussed with him, saying, I have the feeling that this guy may be motivated by envy. Because this one is having a niqab, so he cannot talk about hijab now. He came now with esoteric things about voices, aura, and so on. So he real Wahhabi core came forward. But
that's the thing. That's the thing. But the problem is because he himself is a Salafi or a Wahhabi, whatever it may be, and that's their bias. So for them, voices.
Yeah. But he did not come, for example, against Lily J, and Lily J has considerable followership. Millions.
Yeah, but the thing is, she's not she doesn't come across as Islamic. So this is somebody who comes across as very Islamic.
So he became, and he is also known to be a good campaigner against Christians and so on. So he felt some kind of competition, maybe some kind of hasad, some kind of envy.
Maybe. I mean, I think it's more likely it's that puritanical mentality more than anything.
Allah. I said, Okasha, keep that assumption out of the way. We are not going to say that publicly and so on, but you get a bad feeling. You get a bad feeling. Because if he would have commented Lily J, we say, yes, fine, maybe. He has some reason for...
But there is also another backdrop, because there are a lot of sisters out there. Some of them are very dubious. So even some of them get into the very, very feminist inclined.
It's irrelevant.
So what I'm saying is it's not just about Korah. So the person may use that as an excuse.
My point of view is that they will be very dubious. You don't discuss women in da'wah as a dubious. You say this woman is dubious because of this and this and this and this, and this man is like this because this and this.
I mean, I agree with that because fundamentally, when he was discussing with the thing, for example, Salafis, for all their talk of Quran and Sunnah, they don't bring a lot of Quran and Sunnah.
Yeah.
Because all they talk about, it becomes book club. I watched that debate with him.
The system is talking up. My problem with him is that talking about women in da'wah, not about one nor Lily J. If it's Lily J, I'm objecting to this and this, you have a point and so on. If this one, I'm objecting to this because the way she's arguing is not correct or the language using is harsh, we accept that, etc. But
Sheikh, look at the context. His mentality is...
I know, he's Wahhabi, but what makes me suspect is that he came now, although many before that were there, he never commented on them. And he comes on one, which is obviously now, let's say, stealing the scene from him, because he was really the number one debating with Christian.
Not really. No, he wasn't. He was. There much more.
One in the most utmost front.
I mean, cool. I mean,
yeah. I'm suspecting. I'm saying that's only my suspicion. I've never mentioned that in any video or something like that.
My take on this specifically was for.
But if he hears this, if he happens to hear that somebody to him, say, do for your own self a search in your soul. Is really your motivation pure measure of woman fundamentally, or is there a bit of personal interest and حظ النفس, a share of the self and because many times in these things حظ النفس will play a role. The desire to be forward, the desire of dominance. Yeah. Okay. Well, we are not discussing psychology of the people, but If there's obscure women, fine. Mrs. XYZ is obscure because of this and this and this, fine. Not because she's a woman or not woman.
I think another thing also to put in context is this. I know a very good brother. He's doing an excellent project, and he has sisters being platformed, and they're all alimas and things. And one of the questions actually came from them to ask because of this exact thing. So it's important to basically undermine what these guys are saying, because
yeah, absolutely, we will do.
We are basically putting half the women who half the ummah on the sidelines, the same half that educates the entire ummah.
That's not the argument. The argument is his argument is fundamentally faulty.
Yeah, it's fundamentally faulty, but what I'm saying is that's why.
Because the women are this with all ahkam, this with da'wah like men. Yeah. To exclude, he has to bring an evidence. That's it.
That's it. I mean, again, it comes
out. Are they half of ummah or quarter of ummah? That's not an issue.
But and again, it comes out.
Like for example, some Khwani, when I came here early in the 90s, we're discussing with Azam Tamir, and he said, Hizb ut-Tahrir had success with this because these Ajami do not have Arabic language to understand. That's not an argument. This is an argument as maybe is it some kind of strawman argument? No, not because that. Because Hizb ut-Tahrir at that time had a better structured ideology and better structured da'wah, much more than the Ikhwan, because Azam is Ikhwani. You have an amorphous da'wah. It's not moving the people really in any direction. Yeah?
So it was irrelevant.
Not because they are Ajami. Not because they are Ajami. That's my point.
It was an actual, I mean, as a person who was around at the time, it's because there's an ideology behind it.
Yeah.
What was Ikhwan? Ikhwan was to appease everyone. Oh, we're going to do football. We're going to do this. Without teaching anyone anything.
He is not appeasing. He has his own mistake, but not appeasing. And the people are fed up with appeasement and sycophancy. That's it. Simple. But he wanted to because Ajami. There's no wonder because they're dissing the Ajam only. That's his nonsense. That's nonsense. So they will be always have nafs or partisanship here and there. We have to sort it out. One
last thing.
It's good if someone sees that and remind us of that.
True. One last thing also is this: for all the talk that the Salafi make of Kitab and Sunnah, all they bring is falased and falased. I call it book club. I call it book club because all you're doing is going to your own books and saying your own scholars said this and making that as if that's Kitab and Sunnah.
Yeah.
So,
and they don't see what the other scholars there, what the other point of view, which argument they bring, how valid it is or invalid.
Dalil.
Yeah,
not that.
Dalil, yeah.
It's ijma of my own people who I say they are acceptable. Therefore, it's my own ijma. I've just made it up.
Yeah.
It's rubbish arguments.
Well, that's self-righteousness.
Okay, another question.
Yeah.
So here's a question about. Could I ask the following? In Surah Nisa, الرجال قوامون على النساء. Men are the caretakers of women, using the word qawamuna. In Surah Baqarah, Allah 2-8, Allah says, وَلِرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. Men have a degree of responsibility over them, using the words عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. What is the difference between these two ayahs as the wording used?
It's the same, but it has to be interpreted properly. He mentioned two ayah, but the first ayah, again, he made the same mistake. Because he did not complete the ayah. Read the ayah then. بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Two reasons. There are differences in virtue from some of them above the other one in various aspects. And because men are obliged by Sharia, because they are the one who spend, so they have to be having a little bit more responsibility and commanding power, making the final decision after consultation and so on. Okay, so let me explain. فضل بعضهم على بعض. Some people say فضل رجال النساء. No, فضل بعضهم على بعض. He gave preferences. For example, he gave تفضيل for men in bodily, physical body, and maybe if the research really is, it seems to be established now in more like mathematical engineering thinking. They call it one-dimensional thinking, while women are having superiority in comprehensive and overwhelming thinking. That's called left brain, right brain. Although there's a controversy about that, but I think it cannot be denied. It has been now relatively established. If it is true, then it's one of the tafdeel. The tafdeel the Rijal is having superiority if we're discussing mathematics and engineering, and women have tafdeel. We discuss medicine and other, for example, social sciences and education, which is we see really visibly like that, for example, in the average. That's one. And also in matter of rights they have. Women have over their children much more rights, and the children have more obligations. They want the triple of the father. That's tafdeel. So that does not mean but in the case of Qawama, it means that the men are more physical capability, they're capable of earning, and they are, because of that, Allah made, and one dimensional thinking, because earning money and going for the field and working does not need philosophical, wide, comprehensive emotional thinking and balance. It needs more one-line work, how to work, how to produce money, how to support the family. That's good. Men are in that much better than women. So that's it. And then because they spend from the money, that's the Qawama. They are a caretaker, and in a community or a company of two persons, man and woman, if they don't come to agreement by consultation, then finally someone must make a final decision. Who makes a final decision? The man, and take the responsibility for that. Yeah, that's it. And that's in the family life, as long as the marriage question. If the marriage is dissolved, for example, then the father is the one obliged to support her for even breastfeeding. Even the children is not her obligation; it's his obligation. Meaning he cannot do it, but he has to spend the money to support him for that. She can refuse that, or they may discuss: should you go the full term of 2 years of breastfeeding or less? والقرآن says هذا فصالا. These ayahs much later than the two others. فصالا عن تشاور وتراض بينهما. If they cannot, now they are not married, so he has no right of command and enforce something. The marriage is not there. So what to do? فسترضع له أخرى. You have to appoint someone who do the irda. The man has the code. It's his obligation to support the wife when for rida and all other wife obligations, and after divorce, even for breastfeeding. She said, I need support. This taking all my time, and I have to keep health and so on. This costs so much money. Here's the rest of money. You pay that. No. Or he says, okay, I will pay it, but only 6-8 months. And then we start separating. I say, no, I don't agree for 6-8 months. We will go the 1.5 year, and you pay for 1.5 year. If they don't come to a reasonable agreement, فصالا عن تشاور وتراضي. Both agree, and both after consultation, not just haphazard, then, and she insists. فإن تعثرتم, if it becomes so difficult to come to an agreement, now he cannot use qawama, because it's not qawam anymore. It's not. They are divorced already. So what to do? فسترضع له أخرى. Husband, father of the child, who is responsible for the breastfeeding financially, find another woman who will feed breastfeed. That's it. According to your desire. Most of the time they will agree on something, hopefully, but it can be just with the عصرته. فيبين لك what is the meaning of قوامة there. The final decision for the husband, as long as the marriage persists after consultation. If it is for breastfeeding, which is a very important aspect of child bringing up, essential aspect, otherwise child will die. Or a substitute feeding with the bottle and so on, but this is obviously highly undesirable anyway. But then clearly in all other affairs in the marital life. We're going to have a holiday this year, go to Spain. No, we don't, we go to Italy. Ultimately, they cannot agree which one is the target this year. The husband says, it's Italy, the Spain is this year. Then it is Spain. That's a thing like that. That's a final decision is on him. And all optional things of life answer. No, this city, living in this city, we don't have enough income and so on. I have a better job. No, here I'm near to my family and so on with this day. But they discuss and balance things, and ultimately they don't come to an agreement. Then the husband has to find this, unless there's a condition in the marriage that she will not be living away from her family. Then he has to comply. That's because of the marriage condition. And so I mentioned an example so you imagine what the meaning of the ayah is applied. Now go to the previous ayah. Then qawwamuna, meaning because the physical differences and the genetic differences, the chemical differences, definitely the differences. And nobody can deny them except someone who's brain dead. Leave that. And in some of them, the women are superior, in some of the men are superior. In the case of marital life, the men will be superior in the aspects which are important and necessary for the marriage. I give you an example of women who are superior beside the issue of having more rights on the children without much obligation, because of they will carry in the womb and they suffer all these pain of the pregnancy. For example, something independent of that, which does not play in a role here, but show that, for example, woman physiology and biochemistry allows, for example, conversion of vegetarian omega-3 alpha-linolic acid into the important one, DHA and EPA, which is necessary for the brain and the heart, at very high efficiency. So if they take, for example, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed powder or oil, even 1 tablespoon of oil, then they don't need fish and so on. That's what converted internally. That's what you need, for example. That's a very great. Men will try to imitate that. They can't, because the efficiency is only 5 or 10%. So you have to substitute for with fish and salmon and that's a preference in certain aspects connected with the difference between estrogen and testosterone. I mentioned that just to say that they are not equal, not exactly mathematically equal. In certain aspects, women are superior and more capable in other aspects, and so on. Men are superior, even health-wise. But it's not relevant for their life that you convert better omega-3, vegetarian omega-3 into fish type omega-3, which is the one needed in the body. The other one is secondary, just mostly used to convert, but it has other uses. The example abounds. So that's it. The other one in the Baqarah, what was the ayah? The Baqarah remind me of the ayah. ولرجع لهن درجة. Most scholars, at least modern scholars, but in time past, this درجة is درجة القوامة. That's the قوامون على النساء in. So the درجة is درجة in the marital life. Outside the marital life, there's no need for one be caretaker over other, because they have no caretaker relation. So this plus the ayah of Rada', all of them put together show you the clear picture. But if you cut them in pieces, and our brother who asked the question, the first ayah cut it in half and left the important part, then a very important part, because half of this qawama is based that he's the one obliged to spend. She is not under obligation to spend anything at all. She owns her money completely. And this reflects in many rulings. For example, one ruling is that a woman can give her zakat to her husband if he's from the zakat categories. But the husband cannot give zakat to his wife, because he has to support her. You cannot get away from the support by saying, oh, I allocate some zakat to her. No, the zakat is not for that. That will be for original money, not for the zakat. Many other things that we'll discuss, inshallah. I'm thinking about some writing about. I have it in English actually since the beginning of even before the beginning of this century. Just written on request of some Muslim ladies and so on, and this needs updating and improvement and clarifying some that some hadith which we have now established with certitude that they are fabricated. Like no people will succeed who appoint in leadership a woman, which has been adopted as that manhood is malehood is a necessity for khilafah is not true. Also, the qada al-mudanim is not true. It's based on that hadith. That's all that they have, and all nations that can be proven effectively. But this at that time it was not clear to me. So I said, exclude all possible activities in society and state except being head of state and so on. I exclude in that old writing. So that old writing has to be revisited and improved. We're improving always in the right direction, inshallah. When we find things which we in the time past we did not recognize. It's bit by bit, step by step. Like the Hadith say, for example, that Imam Hatib Quraysh say this is desirability. This is a khabar which indicates desirability, not obligation. That's Sheikh Taqi managed that method. In reality, it has nothing to do with desirability obligation. It's a pure khabar. And there are many other akhbar as well, very established as this, which shows that they were taken away from him if they violate certain principle. So it is just a history. It will be in my time and time after me for certain time. This is the leadership of Islam, the leadership of Arabs. But down the road, when the leadership spread in all nations and so on, they will disappear from the leadership position by historic necessity. So it is not a command that should be from Quraysh or not from Quraysh. No, it's just describing what the future will be. Is a pure khabar, which has no implication in matter of desirability or undesirability or haram or haram at all. The only one who indicates as haram to challenge them is the hadith of Muawiyah. We know now very well what Muawiyah is. He's a liar and fabricator. He fabricated this bit in the hadith in Bukhari. That's what the people relied upon. That is obligatory. He said that Imam Quraysh. I hear them say Imam Quraysh, yes. And then he added his tail as usual. He doesn't fabricate ex nihilo except in one or two cases. As this one. لا يعاديهم أو لا ينازعهم أحد إلا كبه الله وجه في النار. Nobody disputes with them this imama, disputes him, unless Allah put him his face in the hellfire. And then obviously he cannot make it like absolute like that. Rajul is intelligent, he's not stupid. ما أقاموا الدين, as long as they establish deen. Because he cannot get away with that. He will catch his neck and break it. But wait. So he got away with this peace. لا ينزعهم أحد إلا كبه الله وجه في النار. ما أقام, as long as they establish deen. And so he claims he established a religion, خلاص. So nobody should dispute with me. And also that statement in Bukhari is not coming haphazard, coming in a response, because someone told him, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As says, there will be a king or a ruler or a khalifa from Qahtan. He said, who is Ibn Amr ibn As reporting things which you never heard from the Messenger of Allah? These are the ignorant ones under you. I hear them saying, as I mentioned that, half fabricated hadith, which means it's completely fabricated. Because if you add a sentence in the hadith deliberately, you are fabricated. Okay? I just mentioned that casually. So that based on that, Imam Quraysh and things like that. So we matured from time past of Sheikh Taqi further on evidence. We have evidences now, irrefutable evidences that he fabricated the hadith and he's a liar. Okay.
So just carrying on from that, what about the ayah that gives men the right to correct their women if they are become rebellious?
That's a point of objection of many people and so on, definitely. And it is the story about that is that there is in this ayah, it is the one who if you fear their nushuz, if they do nushuz, and nushuz here has been interpreted variously. What the general or gut feeling nushuz is nashiz, say nashaza, meaning becoming trying to be dominant and rebellious and refusing obedience generally. And the nashiz in al-ard meaning a protrusion, like a hill is a nashiz from the plain land, etc. But here in the ayah, because the context of it and also the انه فالذين خافوا نشوزنا فاضربوهن وهجروهن فعظوهن first to advise them. And then nushuz had to be iterated because it's an exception from the general rule, because it contains فاضربوهن at the end if advice does not work, and forsaking the bed هجر المضاجع, meaning you leave the bedroom and sleep in the living room or on the floor. And so you must say, and after that, beat them. And the Prophet explains that beating is a light beating, avoiding general beating is a light. But this one is very light. ضرب غير مبرح. Jamil. In this case, nushuz must be interpreted with the minimum nushuz. The minimum nushuz, which is refusing intercourse without justification. Why we interpret it this way? Because generally, a woman is the woman obligation that an extent to obey the husband for everything. There's some fabricated hadith, like a fabricated hadith that a woman, husband was traveling away and told her, don't go out of the house or don't visit your father. He has to dispute with their father. If it is the second one, he is wrong to begin with, but it seems to be the first one. Don't leave the house until I come back. And then he left a story. The hadith is in a mustadrak. That's what fools many people. And it's faulty. We will study that also and show you where is the fault. The hadith says, continue, allegedly, it says, where he was absent, her father died. In obedience to him, she did not go even visit at the funeral and so on. Did not visit her and did not. He was sick, did not visit and so on. And then he came back and said, maybe he regretted and so on. And allegedly, I'm saying, Allah commented, this obedience to her guaranteed her Jannah. So the fabrication is clear, but it is clear because husband has no right to tell his wife, don't visit your father. He may tell her, I don't want your father in my house. Enter it. Your obligation, your daughter, father obligations on you can discharge by going to him, being good to him, give money to him. But I don't like him entering my house because this is one of the obligation. One obligation is that she does not allow someone in his house without his permission. Had one of the obligations. And respond to his call for bed unless she has a Sharia excuse. And then two other obligations, Ibn Hazm discussed them. It's the only obligation. She's not obliged to cook for him. That's a hard obligation. Because an Arab, a Bedouin asked him, say, listen, there are many things, I'm confused. What is the obligation of my wife on me? And so he told him, on you you dress her the way you dress, from the same fabric. You feed her the same food you feed. You don't have a separate, because some Arabs have the habit that they have a special food for the landlord. And still someone from Syria reported to me that some Syrian is having this bad habit. Secluded food for the head of the family. Nobody touch it. And special flour and special things. That should not be the case. But still, until today in Syria, inherited over the generation by misguided Bedouins. And never addressed by scholar in a staunch way, unfortunately, because the male-oriented, misogynistic mentality penetrated since Muawiyah, especially, continuously until it became dominant. And another obligation. And then you don't say qabbahak Allah, you don't insult her like that, and don't slap her face. Slapping the face and say qabbahak Allah is sufficient ground for divorce. And so on. And on here is not admit anyone in your house. Don't manage your money and your wealth in your presence and absence properly. Don't cheat in that. And two others. I will get the hadith, inshallah. Ibn Hazm say this is the basic obligation. All other things are charity. You can do more as a husband, and she can do more. Say, you can do more than husband. Because people brought to him that the wife of Zubair was managing his horse for him. And Ibn Hazm answered that, say, who said that the wives of the Sahaba and the Sahabiya were not charitable? It's a charity. There's no obligation there to do that. But she's doing it, maybe continuing the Ada of Jahiliyyah, or just, and in the case of Asma bint Abi Bakr, I think very well is that because he's a wife beater and difficult man to deal, so she wants to avoid problem with him. And even one of these occasions, she came back from the horse, which is outside Medina, in a farm or something like that. And then the Messenger of Allah passed and saw her and said, she's walking, told her, Anakh al-Ba'ir. He sent the camel down and said, come behind me. And she wanted to do that because she was tired from the management of the horse. Then she remembered the jealousy, the extreme jealousy, almost malignant jealousy of Zubair. And she said no, and that she accelerated toward Medina. And the Messenger noticed that she somehow bashful and so on. And he continued, live here at liberty. Then she told the Zubair that, I remembered your jealousy, I did not mount behind the Messenger of Allah. Say your suffering of the walk is more difficult, is more hurting me than being behind the Messenger of Allah. Messenger of Allah is absolutely trustworthy. What's the problem with you? So she overestimated him because of his very uncharitable character. So these are human things like this. Now, this shows in the ayah should be interpreted after establishing all these ahadith as being fabricated. Must be in this context, must be interpreted with the minimum nushuz, which is rejecting intercourse. So you start with advising her, this is haram, your obligation. What is the reason? If there's a reason, obviously, but sickness and so on, genuine reason, that's fine. If not, then then it is nushuz. Then advise again, this is haram, so big and everything. If doesn't work, then go to next stage and show I'm not dying for your intercourse. I will be even desert the bed if necessary. If that will not work, then what is the solution? One solution is divorce, but this may be not feasible and also maybe not required. Some of these nushuz women are really having a really psychological upbringing problem. A slap on the bum, as I told some feminists. I had once a discussion of feminists in an Arabic space in Twitter, before Twitter became X, and they were feminists. We were discussing that. So, nice slap on the bottom may sort her out. This is preferable over divorce. Otherwise, salama. If there is no intercourse, and she's rejecting intercourse, and all these previous steps did not work, then situation is dramatic. Taking care for cases, a minority of cases, women who are really would like to have a good slap on the bum, give her a slap on the bum. That's ضرب غير مبرح. She may enjoy it. She may be what they call the one who enjoy to be tortured.
Masochist.
Masochist. Maybe she has a masochistic inclination. You cannot prevent people from having these diseases. And the Sharia to accommodate. Keeping the marriage is preferable over these things, but not to the level that you become a wife beater like a Zubair. As we're used to, a smart reporter. But if he's angry with some of his wives, or with her, obviously, she's one of them. What is this sound?
Somebody's going to be speaking in a second. It's probably just got a bit of reverberation. Just a quick one before you.
She mentioned the following for Zubair to know as well how harsh he was, and so obviously he has also upbringing problem because his mother was very harsh. He takes the hanger of clothing, take the stick, the cross stick, and beat some of his wives until the stick breaks. Very impulsive, nasty wife beater. And they decided to tolerate it until an opportunity comes. They go, let me tell this story just for fun. One of his wife also was fed up, and then she felt the pain of delivery, and she estimated, I will deliver now, so maybe like in an hour or something like that. And then he came home for something. It was her day, I think, or just passing, say salam and so on. She started with him a dispute deliberately. And back and forth, she angered him completely. Obviously, he could not take a second beat because she's very high pregnant. So there's a danger there. So he divorced her. You are divorced. And went out. She knows his anger. Omar called him kafir al-ghadab. His anger is kafir. It's kafir. Completely goes out any border. And she gave birth, as expected. She was lucky. She gave birth. He came back, opened the door, say, I regretted what I did. He was in the market doing dealing and so on. Came back a couple of hours later. I regretted, I take you back. She said, you cannot. I gave birth already. So he was outraged. So he went to the Messenger of Allah and said, this happened. And she had cheated me out of herself. So Allah said, you divorce your wife and she cheated me out of yourself. You have to control yourself first. You have no wife. She's gone. She got free this way. I'll show you how harsh the bear. So this, you're dealing with human beings of this type. This solution with the shoes, the bed probably is rejecting intercourse with no justification. But before that, there will be advising, discussion, possibly getting help from other people, consultation. Also, Tahkim is there. With the evidence of the Quran, then deserting in the bed, only the bed, not outside the house, because the Messenger told that a Bedouin who asked him about what my obligation, say, if you desert for whatever reason, then don't desert the house. You cannot spend the night outside the house, except with your permission. You have to be in the house overnight. And this was a very Sharia reason, with the wife and aware about the reason. But just out of anger, no. You go to the other room, you sleep on the floor, leave the bedroom. That's it. But in the house. فَجُرْهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. Not to desert the house completely. Does not work this way. Does not work this way. And if that doesn't work, maybe she's having masochistic inclination. That's a minority woman may have that. And I express that from my own way to these Arabic feminists. I say a good nice slap on the bum will satisfy her needs when she's being treated harshly and sort her out. If not, then assalamu, bye bye. Okay, that's the only thing. So I have a summary now about all of these things. But this requires some work in showing that these ahadith which they narrate are fabricated. Yeah, and this can be shown, including the hadith which we discussed in Tawheed. If I, concerning the issue of Mu'adh bin Jabal and prostrating him, or asking to prostrate for him, and you say, what is this? Say they in Sham, they said this and this and this and this. And the similar hadith for Qais ibn Ubadah, Qais ibn Sa'd ibn Ubadah. And allegedly, they just say, no, they lied about, because they say this is the greeting of the prophets. Say they lied about their messengers, and they corrupted their books. That's a very important evidence. And then say, allegedly, hadith concludes, ولو كنت آمرا أحدا أن يسجد لأحد لأمرت المرأة أن تسجد لزوجها. If I would command anybody to prostrate for anybody, I would command the woman to prostrate for her husband because of his great or right above her. We have in the book of Tawheed, we just passed it some sessions back. We have shown that there's another channel of narration which goes through Ali ibn al-Madini, a better channel than the one in al-Mustadrak, in which the end part is not this one, it's another end part. Not this with the woman. So this is obviously someone inserted that. Who is this someone? We have to scrutinize, I have to scrutinize that once more. All of that I will attend to. The same, no people succeed if they give their leadership to a woman, is also now manifestly have been fabricated. We have proven that now, written down, but not completely in a way we, the way we publish things, we don't leave any loopholes or any, we scan everything. Sunni traditions, Shiite tradition, everywhere, without exception. Until we come to the truth. Okay, I think that's enough now.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Somebody wanted to ask a question on this as well. So,
can I ask my question besides?
Just 1 second before you go. Because
if I go off mute, then you have to put me back on.
Yeah, just 2 seconds. You mentioned a document that you're working on, Doc. Is that the one on the Women in Islam document on GitHub, or is it a different document?
That's the old one. Yeah, that has to be.
Okay, so it's something you're doing in Arabic, yeah?
Yeah, in Arabic, and then we translate to English immediately.
Okay, that's fine. So it'll be a long time. Okay, far away in that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First thing on that hadith, Sheikh Akram said the hadith about the woman prostrating to the man. He said the best of them is from riwayah of Mu'adh bin Jabal, and when he came back from Yemen. But he said Mu'adh bin Jabal, when he went to Yemen, he never came back. So how can this be correct?
Yeah, so for many reasons. It's most likely, even if he was in Sham for some business and coming back, but this could be objected, that the same hadith, exactly the first part of it, is exactly narrated with another ending, which we have in the book of Tawheed. Go back to the book of Tawheed, you will find it mentioned, I think, several, when we're discussing the sujood, is sujood ibadah, not ibadah. Go and we mentioned the other channel through Ali ibn Madini, the ending is not with the woman prostrating.
Oh, okay.
So check that the book of Tawheed.
The question I wanted to ask is about the ayah in Surah Al-Shura, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Man kana yuridu harth al-akhirati nazida lahu fi harthih, wa man kana yuridu harth al-dunya nu'tihi minha, wa ma lahu fi al-akhirati min nasib. Now, this for me was a very shocking, one of the ayat that seemed to change my life, because it seemed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the choice is binary. You either choose the harth al-dunya or the harth al-akhirah.
Definitely. We have verified the issue that there's a confusion about qadar and qada and the free will of humans within obviously limitation of the universal the dominance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's genuine free will, and Allah says whoever wants the harth al-akhirah, want akhirah, keep akhirah as his ultimate term, then we will increase his harth, meaning we'll give him more, we'll guide him to more achievement beyond his capabilities. And who wants the dunya, we get him, not him and her. He will get whatever the system of the universe and his effort and his work and his qualification will bring. and then he has no share in akhirah. That's just so.
I want to ask about that.
But there's
particular
more
part.
binary. Can't you say that the choice is binary or something? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But in here we have to interpret that the one who is according to his belief, there's an akhirah and it's the ultimate one. The work is ultimate. While in dunya, he will do the dunya work, but as a passing station. The one you read half of dunya, ignoring akhirah completely, or disbelieving there's an akhirah, will have no in akhirah, no nasib.
But what about Muslims? 95% of Muslims, they are chasing harut al-dunya.
No, that's not true. That's the problem. Now we are going to misinterpretation. If malahu fil akhirah, half of dunya exclusively without having any regard of akhirah.
Okay.
If someone is like that, he's not a Muslim, even if he's nominally a Muslim. So if you think someone is only doing half a dunya, tell him, don't you think there's an akhir, there's accounting? If you say no, or I don't know, then he's not a Muslim, even if he's nominally a Muslim.
Okay.
So many which people are called Muslim in these billion and so on, maybe tens of millions, hundreds of millions are munafiq, even they may not know it. Especially those who allied with the kuffar and fought against Muslims, because this is an act of kufr. According to the Quran, there is no escape from that. It's one of the most devastating things you can do.
So this is about exclusivity.
Yeah, sorry, this is about exclusivity. If you mean that, but you mean that it's a free will and you have to do that or do that, that's understood by many ayahs.
Okay, my question is more about the reality of Muslims in today's world.
No. I think this is the, but some the focus on akhirah is retreated back so as if it is not there.
Okay.
But it's still with the basic shahada belief after resurrection. So as we have a fundamental belief on the resurrection, if there's a doubt or ignoring it or something, then clearly you are not a Muslim anymore, even if you're nominally a Muslim, you are then a munafiq.
Is it right to say upon this ayah and other evidences and ahadith that the Muslim in this life, they should seek a simple life, but they should seek an amazing life in the akhirah? This is the philosophy.
Yeah, that's the fundamental thing. Yeah. Dunya is maybe one of the best expressions of Abdullah ibn Umar, which is, I think, usually his point of view about these deep issues is not the best one, by the way. Especially political issues, is a blunder. But in this one, he said, work for your dunya as if you are living forever, and work for your akhirah as if you are dying tomorrow. That's the balance. It's a very difficult balance. Now, human beings tend to forget akhirah, busy with the dunya, with the immediate result. That's not human nature. Your vision is not far away. That's the reason there's a salah to remind you. There is various things reminding you. People reminding each other. Remember, there's an akhirah and so on. And sometimes the whole environment becomes more dunya oriented. Like, for example, the following funny story is mentioned: how the ruling class affect the general taste of the population. He says, one of the tabi'in say, I witnessed the following in how the people were. In the time of Walid ibn Abd al-Malik, the people, Abd al-Malik was obsessed with building and structures and renovation and so on. Yeah? Or sexual achievement. So you two men meeting, they would discuss if they have added something to the house or improved in the building. That was the common discussion of most people. Then came time to Salman al-Ali. Salman al-Ali was interested, because between Walid and Mu'izz and Salman al-Malik was interested in tables and royal appearance without interested in building. And then people were discussing which kind of meal they have yesterday. And then when Umar al-Aziz came, so after some time, if you meet the same people who was, they will discuss, by the way, how many ayahs you memorized yesterday? So the ruling elite, how the government is run, radiate down to the people. Is a dialectic process, interacting process.
I see.
So that's the environment. It does not mean the same people who were there more concerned about the new structure, the new building, are not Muslims and then became later Muslim. Now they are Muslims but deficient, infected by the ruling class and what they see as the government is busy with and so on. And the next one, other thing, other habit. We see that in America now, and even it's Muslim in America, because of the issue of capitalism and making money and so on is the main thing there. Billionaires and millionaires and their stories are the one regarded as an example. For example, in a discussion with atheists, they say, for example, many first-class people, important people are atheists. Like, for example, Warren Buffett is an atheist and successful. So he regards as an argument that atheism is not bad. It's good for you. That's very shallow, obviously, very, but that's human nature if you don't liberate yourself from this.
But is it also like دول الخليج, all of them are chasing حرث الدنيا?
Because the leadership is the same way. That's the life how it's enacted. They are not giving any good examples. That's one of the reasons.
And the Monotheism UAE is already
another example. The scholars themselves are treasonous, and they're participating in half the dunya also, having lavish palaces and so on.
I mean, look at this, for example. Look, you know, obviously you're going to have the rulers who are scum, but then you're going to have the people who support them. Look at the amount of influencers who are sanitizing what the UAE are doing. Not just scholars. So you're going to have scumbags, and even Tawheed. Imagine a Tawheed is attacking other people. Fine, attacking right, but being completely silent on the UAE.
And also, you know, the whole nasheed industry is funded by these Emiratis.
Yeah,
so all they talk about is
now we're discussing now how this issue related to government and social structure and media and so on. And this is compounded. All these regimes are, first of all, they are slaves of their vassals of the West. They are not really homegrown initially in any great sense. Number one. Secondly, they are tyrannical against their own population. Just imagine Saudi Arabia, one tweet, especially if you are from the wrong madhab like a Shi'i, you get 35 years imprisonment for a tweet supporting Palestine. 35 years. So it's completely, there's no way to show anything. So all the opposition, all the inkar on the government, all of carrying da'wah is secret underground. So if you look at the external, it looks like everything is busy with dunya. Even though who are not busy with dunya internally, they are pretend to be, so that they will not be picked up and tortured and so on.
Can I ask you a personal question? Like, for example, I am involved in entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship takes a lot of time, effort, sweat, focus. And when I read this ayah a month or so ago, it really shocked me because it made me think, hold on a second, I am putting all this time and effort into this. Is this wrong because of this ayah?
No, it's not wrong because of this ayah. It's wrong if you forget akhirah.
Okay.
And also some people who get involved in entrepreneurship, I said, with the deliberate intention that they will, the proceed will be going to charity, will be going to self-improvement, will be going and the business and so on, and it will go for supporting yourself and the family and granting them a lifestyle which is better than the current one.
Okay, but it takes, because it's like a zero-sum game.
No, it's not. But look, for example, the hadith explains that. Okay. Hadith says someone from Bani Israel usually gives example when it's because they were ajaib in them. It's a time of revelation, so things which are supernatural happen even to common people. A man was going, there's also something somewhere in Palestine, a place which is not, and then there were clouds moving. And then he heard the clouds, sound from the clouds. He was terrified as he looked. And then he believed to perceive that one cloud is talking to the other. And asked her, you seem to be going off way a little bit, like a current of the wind, because the wind is not always in the same direction. Sometimes there's a variable and so on, and vortexes and so on. Said, yes, I'm going to the end of the valley there. I'm ordered to rain on the farm of so and so on. I'm in a state of shock. Obviously, it's miraculous anyway. Then he decided this man must be super in rituals and so on. That's what the people come in the festival. So he went there, found the area garden. It has rained, so on. He watched the man, pretended to be a worker, worked with him and so on, so he doesn't see anything special. He's working hard in the orchard and so on, planting, etc., etc. And then, and some familiarity, he said, I don't see you having so much of rituals and sacrifice, and because when you say sacrifice is the main thing, more even than prayer or extra prayers, just the basic things. And told him the story about the clouds. So how come the clouds is coming to you? See, I don't know either. There's nothing special about me. I don't have night prayer. I don't have this. I don't have this and this. Allah knows why it is. Maybe it is this. Before the man leaves, he said, okay, there's one thing, maybe it is. When I work in this hard work, my intention is that a third, or I divided 3 portions, the proceeds. 1, I spend on myself and my family, so they have a good life standard. It's better to be a good life standard than be poor and begging. Good dress, good food. And the third, not to say a third, but a second portion, I reinvest in it, so it is kept to the uppermost level of effectivity. And the other third is allocated for charity. It's must. So the charity is that what got him. And the charity means he's working for Akhir.
I see.
Even the second part, which reinvesting it, because reinvesting it, keep it at top production and effectivity and produce more money next year. Another example, another hadith. Jibreel said, someone give 10 dirham for charity. He get 10 hasana to the Messenger of Allah. And some give 10 dirham as a loan. Obvious interest-free loan, not these capitalist loan. He gets 15 hasan. So they say, how come does someone give it for loan, give 15 hasan? Because the one who give it to someone for loan will receive it back, and he will lend it further and further and further. It's working. And the one who receive it will not just consume it and say, I have to retain it, so I have to work, do something. He produce. This is all happening in dunya.
But is it right to say that the objective of the Muslim is to live a simple mutawassit life?
Not necessary. He can strive to have, for example, Ibrahim is an example. It's a good example. He was living a royal life. Any guest coming, 2, 3, he slaughters a complete calf. Instead, maybe a small sheep, would be enough for the 3 men come. The 3 messengers came in human shape, and himself, nobody is there. He goes and make a calf and grill it and so on. Sophisticated. Look, this is a royal at that time, and even at our time, it's a royal table. Not necessary. Was living lavishly. Maybe he never intended it came like that. Maybe he wanted it. No problem.
What about the hadith of Abir al-Sabil?
But also combine all of this. No one will give you the complete picture. And not everyone is having the same capability and the same mentality like another one. Some people are more comfortable with being unknown, being just basic income, living basically. And some people less, and some people more. Yeah. Everyone has to find what is his comfort level. But Akhirah is definitely coming, and this is the eternal life. Work for it. That's it.
But shouldn't that be the focus?
Yeah, in that sense, yeah. But it has to be. If you believe it's coming, you genuinely believe it's really in the heart, it will be. And that will implicate for every money and every earning for the other enterprise. You must develop the expectation that whatever not reinvested and spent on myself in a reasonable way, it should what reasonable you recognize what's reasonable. For example, you and your family, you may strive to move to a house that every child has a bedroom, even if they can live together, like boys alone and together. No, everyone has a bedroom, and this bedroom is having en suite. This regarded by many people as luxury. I would say I strive for that if I can, but we are begging. So this is out of question. For example. But a house number of children, maybe you have 2 or 3 children now and you're not planning anymore, or you're out of, or your wife out of childbearing age or something. I assume that. Then you have 4 or 5. Then you get a house of 5 bedrooms, maybe 1 bedroom or 2 for guests and for in-laws when they come and so on. But you don't get a palace of 30. It will be a waste. Unless you divide it and rent it out. That will be not waste, will be investment. They rent it out for more money. Money for what? For either investment or charity, because you have covered all your needs. That's what the man with the cloud has been doing. But charity must be fundamental in your mind, not just the basic zakah, more. That's what shows if someone reads Akhir. But charity is a fundamental part of his mindset. At least the basic one, zakat. But more, if possible. And this will motivate you to do more, invest in what you have, and improve your business and so on, so it can produce more. Produce more for what? Not just for more money. I'll give me a counter example. They were in the crisis of 27, 28, 29 happened. Obviously, many people went bankrupt. So one German milliardaire, I forgot his name now, his worth was, before the car was 8 billions. Okay? 8 billions. In the crisis, I think toward the end, it's sunk down to 7 billions, which is not substantial, really. But this man is so in love with money, and money is he lives for money, not the money lives for him. He was so distressed because of that he committed suicide. Which kind of man is that? That's exactly what the جمع ماله وعدده. يحسب أن ماله أخلده. He's bringing money and adding it up. He becomes more happy than number gets. Money for money for money. Yes, you will be upset if you go from 8 billion to 7 billion, or from 8 million to, yeah, you'll be upset. But not to the level you commit suicide, as if your life having. You still have 7 billion, for God's sake. So he's having the money. The money is controlling him. He's a slave of his own money. Okay, I hope this clarified. You have to take all evidences. The problem with those who go in extreme in one direction, they take only one evidence, and like what we discussed about women, the ayah of qiyam وخلاص, or the ayah فضل بعضهم على بعض without delay, and that was going to the ayah of رضاعة, showing all the consistent picture, and the specific rights and the rank of the mother above the father, way above the father. They neglect it. They don't put it in synchronized picture. Good. So look at all of these examples and the various ayahs and how to balance it, and it's easy to balance.
So I made an observation that Muslims lack vision, and charity can be through creating jobs for the community and projects to prop up Muslims.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good example.
You could reinvest more and create jobs specifically to help other people, and maybe transfer that to them. You create, for example, a small factory and employ Muslim, for example, or even needy people and so on, whatever it is. And after a few years, 5, 10 years, you feel that this is standing on its own feet, and the people have to prove loyalty to that one, the loyal ones, and you transfer the ownership, make it shares, and give it to them as a reward for the 10-year of loyalty, for example.
And also, even in
I'll give an example, another type of charity.
Also, another thing, just to even in giving charity, always seems to be break fix. This is a problem. Let's just give it to this. Is there? I think
the understanding of charity is completely miserable. For example, I remember when we had halaqah in the 90s, and Samih Zubairi was discussing with the others and mentioning that we need to print books and so on, try to make them donate. They never thought that. Most of them are Pakistani, but they were, from time to time, they have a campaign, because there's a woman in India, Muslim woman, which cannot marry because you don't have the dowry, which is even the Hindu style, not the Muslim style, and they collect for her. That's charity. Supporting da'wah and so on. Books, no, it's not. It's political activity, seems to be there. That's the way the meaning of charity and had shrunk in their mind.
I mean, here's another one. For example, there's also things that will benefit the community. So, for example, Sapiens, 5 Pillars. These guys, they're full time on this mission. So,
Yeah.
for example, Sapiens, especially, they're doing
Yeah.
full time, backbreaking amount of work in campaigning for the Deen.
That's
some
charity.
resources.
There is a charity here. Even I would say, because they are in da'wah and jihad al-kalima, you may think seriously about if you give a share even of the zakat with them. But that's in the general concept of Muslim, that's not regarded as charity. Charity is building a masjid, supporting a woman for marriage, something like that. The basic.
And some of these masjids have got, they end up spending it on like chandeliers and entirely irrelevant stuff when that money could go towards building a halfway house for homeless people or something. There's so many. Again, it's down to lack of vision. So the person who asked that, who made that comment, is very valid. And also, if he's got some follow and stuff, if you want to unmute, it's probably easier because we can't really go back and forth all the time. Somebody asked, somebody was trying to unmute earlier, who's saying in relation to the Qawam question, you interpret Qawamuna as limited authority. Of course, in Islam,
in the marriage, read the ayah.
If I read it first, because that way there's no confusion. So this is what he's saying. Sheikh, you interpret Qawamuna as limited authority. Of course, in Islam, ultimate and unconditional obedience is to Allah and His Messenger.
No, that's
but
not,
isn't
that's
that verse proof of authority of obedience due to the husband, that Allah says, and righteous women are obedient? And given that the verse goes on to say, and if they obey you, it makes no sense to restrict qanitat to qanitat lillahi wa lil rasul.
No,
that's the full
question. Is gambled. He talks about qawama. Yeah. Qanitat does not mean obedience. Standing upright. It may contain obedience and good behavior, charitable behavior, nice behavior. But independent of that, let's say ayah which uses the word qawama. Qawamun. Read the ayah to its end. That's it. But I say it's clear. It's in the marital life. Has nothing to do with anything outside that. Number one. بفضل بعض على بعض وما أنفقوا من أموالهم. And then the nushuz. It ends with the nushuz. What is the nushuz there? Rebellious. What does mean rebellious here? What is the rebellion meant here? Could be any disobedience or restricted down. From the other hadith and from the other evidence in the Quran, it has to be restricted down to rejecting intercourse. Read it. You can't just cut it in pieces. The problem, the people who commit to like this and connected to Allah is absolute and so on, has nothing to do with ta'ah and so on. Nothing. This is finished. It's done. He's talking to monotheists who believe no obedience is except no absolute obedience only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any violation of that is getting you out of the fold of Islam. There's no discussion on that. Finish. No, that's not the issue. You could argue very principle. Because of that, ta'ah in itself, a necessity is allocated only to Allah. Nobody else deserves any obedience whatsoever, husband or father or anybody, except with Allah's permission. And we don't know that until Sharia says that clearly. And all the other obediences are mentioned in the Quran. For especially أولي الأمر. أطيعوا أولي الأمر منكم. With the word طاعة. In the case of parents, is only good treatment, charity. That's the reason in many fuqaha we talk about عقوق الوالدين, being uncharitable and being they say disobedient. No, it's not disobedient. It's being uncharitable to the parents. And it's clearly expressed the issue of ta'ah to the parents, excluded and prohibited in the case if they are struggling with you to become mushrik. That's absolutely no. In that case, if it comes to that level, then give them good company in dunya ma'ruf, a reasonable way, not charitable way, reasonable way. In a reasonable way. صاحبهم في الدنيا معروفا. It is not a good reason if they try to invite you to kufr and shirk to completely break the relation. لا, صاحبهم, give them company in dunya معروفا, in a reasonable way. If they are asking to do a haram or something else, no obedience for someone who commanded disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the restriction is very clear. So there's no obligation to obey the parents. And they should be educated that they have no right to command over the children. If they are underage, yes, because they are responsible for their management and they are not responsible for themselves in that sense. But after that, no. After that, absolutely no. So father, we are adult now and mature and has no right to tell you stay in the house or go out of the house. That's your choice. You may have a right, unless you say, no, you are now mature now, go and support yourself. That's also a possibility. And it's highly desirable that he spent for you to getting you married. Otherwise, he may be guilty if you fall in zina or haram, because you are not able to marry yourself. So for example, that's an exception for it. But Masi Wadalik.
Sheikh, if I may, you defined
speak louder, please. You've got a lot of background noise.
Sheikh, sorry, Sheikh, you defined qanita, فَالصَّالِحَاتُ qanitat as those with good and upright moral behavior. Was that your definition?
Yeah.
So, if I may, الراغب الإصفهاني in his مفردات ألفاظ القرآن defines qunut as لزوم الطاعة مع الخضوع. So this gives the impression that you have to obey the husband is due obedience within boundaries, but like it still legislates obedience to the husband, like.
No, this
not
is
just in
الصالحات وقانتات. That's the obedience. If he interpreted this way, it is referred to Allah. صالحات in the definition of Allah, not the قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله. That's concerning the husband. When he's absent, they protect his honor, etc. And do not admit
so
him.
how is it restricted? How is it restricted in this verse just to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
It's not restricted. If you interpreted this way, yeah. If you interpret it this way, then this is only valid for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you interpret qunut being upright, well behaved, nicely mannered, then it is you may say that's for the husband. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Raj?
Yeah. Look at the ayah from beginning to the end.
Okay, so the brother's gone on mute again. I think it's a lot of background noise. Okay. Anyway, the next question, far away.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Raj?
Yeah.
So, Sheikh, please, so about this relationship between money and somewhat guilt, do you think it comes like from An-Nasara, from the Christians?
What? I don't understand the question. Some money and some what?
I mean, we as Muslims, we have like this kind of relationship between money and guilt for some. Do you think it comes like from the Christian tradition?
Money and what is money and what is the other one? What is the money with
guilt,
what?
Guilt.
Guilt? Yes. No, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be. It seems to Christianity is more inclined toward praising poverty and so on. As in the books and so on. We don't know if Isa was really stressing that. Maybe at the time of Isa, because all the ruling classes were extremely wealthy, sucking the people's blood and so on. So he has to stress the other side. Maybe. We don't know. We are not certain what Isa really did. But that's clearly the spirit there is the general spirit is really that arrogance and oppression to others is connected to richness, which was the same in the Jewish society, in the leadership society, and for the so it was. And we should not forget his sent to Bani Israel specifically. Ignore what the Christian claim otherwise. And he was sent temporarily until the Paracletus or Muhammad comes. So it's a temporary regulation for a transitional period, and Bani Israel were excluded from being incubator for prophethood. Khalas, that's the last one. So maybe it came from there, but I'm not bothering about where it comes and the philosophical. Yeah, and also
Yes,
Tasawwuf
yes,
and Rahbana, you see, they always, the Sufi in books, روي عن عيسى كذا and so on. They seem to be influenced by monk attitude and monastery. وإذا القرآن criticized that. ورهبانية ابتدعوها ما كتبنا عليهم إلا but they ابتدعوها to please Allah. And even after that, they did not, because it's an invention. It is not by act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is not suitable for human nature. فما رعوها حق رعايته. They invented it, but they did not comply with it as the way it should be. The simplest example, they're supposed to be celibate and so on, but this is impossible for everyone to over the centuries. So many abbeys and monasteries and so on, if you dig under the ground, you find skeleton of babies. Many of these nuns have been impregnated by priests because it's simply against human nature to be celibate all the time. So they will some of them cannot control themselves, and then they fulfill it to who is available, the nuns, either raping them or persuading them that's not okay. You don't know what happens in the big talk between a priest and but that's well established fact. Nobody can deny that. Not because they are bad fundamentally, but because they overload themselves something which beyond human capability in the average. Only few can fulfill that. Yeah.
Sheikh, about that, isn't it like sunnah to like create a community around like some markets, some financial like projects and stuff like that? Because from what I understood, the first thing the Prophet ﷺ did after like when he came to Medina is like to make some sort of stock of market, right, around like the mosque,
so that they don't need to go to the market of the Jews. The Jews are monopolizing the market, so he wanted to get to be independent in business. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that propped up the Muslims, I guess, to like do business
absolutely
them and, like,
nobody doubting
like,
that.
yes,
only people who are mentally deranged doubt that. But I mean, the brother was asking about, is that for dunya only or akhirah? No, it's dunya done for akhirah, not for dunya.
This kind of sunnah, why don't we like talk about this like more than that, to like inspire like Muslims to like create those sorts like of environment between them,
because usually the Muslim have their own market and so on. Many khutaba and so on think they have to take the other side because people went extreme with that. Maybe the khutaba should, and the most at least majority of Muslims in India and Pakistan and so on are Hanafi, and the Hanafi have this bad ijtihad that khutbah al-Jum'ah must be in Arabic, so they have these already written khutbah, and that's it, which is useless anyway. And usually it is made so short and so on. And the writer themselves are living in the dark ages, unfortunately. And they
also, Sheikh, some observations around this, just some observations. One is, you're going to have to leverage the power of the Ummah requires political authority. So if you look at the Muslim worlds, for example, if you look at any of the Arabic worlds, if you had a union, if you had any kind of initiative, you'll be clamped down upon. If you start asking questions, if you start excelling in something, you're going to be clamped down upon. So really, to achieve this, you need political authority. So the real issue is to get the Ummah to think Islam comprehensively as a way of life. And if you gave the example of the Maulanas, India, all these areas, and the entire Muslim world has become secularized, because if you have a secular populace, you're not going to affect authority, and you're not going to. Islam will its understanding of Islam will be just relegated to the masjids, and it will have no impact on society. That's orchestrated. So the thing to offset that is to educate people that Islam is a comprehensive way of life. The opposite of what the Madkhali donkey teaches. The Madkhali donkey teaches the following: just worry about your rituals. Don't worry about anything else. Divide amongst the Ummah as to who will be the chosen ones, and blindly pledge allegiance to the rulers. And then on the other side, you have the Sufi side, like the Bin Bayr, as the doc mentioned. Again, the same thing, which is blind subservience to the rulers and accepting any authority around you. So for example, groups like, for all their faults, you may like them, dislike them, whatever, but Hizb ut-Tahrir, for example, they have a clear call. And why were they so popular? Because they say this, that what underpins it, what did Prophet ﷺ go into Medina as? They have one mistake here, which is in terms of he was the head of the state. But the thing is that he had some level of authority, whether it's only among the Muhajirin or the fact that he had influence over Assad. Which is what? that this is our new way of life. We're going to apply our way of life right now. If you go into the Muslim countries and you start to make any campaign, you will be arrested. If you get arrested for a single tweet for 35 years, what are you going to get for this? So this again. So what needs to happen is underground or publicly when you can is to push the idea about political autonomy, about the ideas about Islamic governance, complete independence, and amongst the communities, it's a proper mentality about yes, if you can work together, if you can form cooperatives, if you can support each other, do it. But the problem is this. Another thing is this. Again, it comes down to mentality. Our own people are just so lazy, or there's an analogy of people trying to go up a mountain. A person who has a correct understanding will help someone else up the mountain. Our people, the ones who are from back home, will be dragging each other down the mountain.
Yeah.
For example, if I wanted to get walnuts, it's a stupid example, but I hope you understand the analogy behind it, which is if I want to get some walnuts, if I can go to the Pakistani place there, so about 5-minute walk, I will get walnuts which are water damaged. Or I can go to Aldi and they're higher quality. Our own people set zero standards, and then they try to exploit ourselves. Oh, why don't you buy from us? Because you're not doing your own part. So those who have a bit of money, they just become covetous, like brown Jews. Brown Jews, you can call them, just completely obsessed with just making money, stabbing each other in the back. Comes from a mentality. That mentality needs to be napalmed. It genuinely, I'm very aggressive in terms of when I see something wrong, I will gladly smash it in its face. And the same thing in terms of that mentality of making a dichotomy between Islam and the dunya, in terms of I can be, as long as I go Hajj, as long as I got a beard, as long as I do certain rituals, I can be as nefarious. I want to sell a car. My car MOT may have failed. I paid the guy to make it pass MOT. I turned the clock back. That's okay for them. This is the secular Jahil worldview. That needs to be purged.
Yeah,
so all these things, for example, the amount of stories I've heard of people doing business and stabbing each other in the back over it. If you're dealing with people with that, carrying that mentality, it's difficult, even in the dawah, to get people who are concerned with anything beyond their own self-interest, whether it's narcissism, whether it's anything. So this mentality and finding the right people is itself a chore. But as a concept, if we push the concept, and that's what's brilliant about people like Sapiens and Sheikh Haytham. They are very practically minded, and they are working on this kind of practical activity. And that's why, as us, not just in terms of somebody in Bangladesh needs a water tank, that's a good thing, but at the same time to promote and support things like these kinds of initiatives, whether it's 5 Pillars, Sapiens, Islam 21C, it's an important thing, because that's again showing an elevated level of thinking to look towards the future. I mean, here's another one. For example, I know a good brother who's doing an entire Quran Institute. It's called the Quran Institute.com. They're churning out people of caliber. They have an entire curriculum. They need premises as well, and they're producing like tens to hundreds of people rolling. So these kind of things, if you see something like that, put your money towards that as well, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have rambled a bit. Okay, next question. Let's see. Are covenants done by Muslim countries, so-called Muslim countries, valid?
What is meaning valid or not valid?
For example, if you have Egypt, all these various countries, if they have a covenant between another, are they valid, enforceable Islamically? Do they have any?
This question is empty. Who will enforce or de-enforce?
From Hukum Sharia,
can you enforce
from Hukum Sharia, for example, are they? I don't know. I can't think of any examples right now.
Are you obliged? Can you violate such a covenant yourself on your personal level? Yes, because it's invalid. It's not by a legitimate authority. They have no right to make a covenant in your behalf. But look at the covenant now. Is it practical? Does it have a beneficial aspects? You can do it then for your benefit and the benefit of the Ummah. If not, then you have to. But in some situations, you have to violate it. Like, for example, they have a covenant, for example, to hand over political activists to each other. You should fight against that. You should even wage revolution against those who have such a covenant. If you can, if you don't come, then you have to condemn it. If you can't, then you forsake it. You don't participate it any political activist, you don't report to the regime. Even if he's a kafir, like a Shi'i, you don't promote him because you support the regime in that. Because you think helping Islam by delivering a Shi'i kafir to them, no, you're not helping. You're strengthening them.
What's a Shi'i kafir?
A Conist, for example, an mulhid, an atheist.
Oh, I see.
You detect him, say, oh, now they have, so he's so Saudi and he escaped to Qatar, but he's really secretly a Shi'i. Let me tell the Qatar government so they will hand him to Saudi. This is a mistake also. You should not do that. You're not helping Islam Muslims because you're giving the regimes strength to do the evil for the other Muslims. And your hostility to the materialism and communism does not mean that this guy should be delivered to these kafirs. They may be worse than him. For example, I'm giving this example, practical example. So what's the meaning covenant enforceable, not enforceable? I mean, on yourself? No. The same thing if they ask about taxes from an illegitimate regime. You're not obliged. But if you don't pay, they will come and break your neck. So you have to balance things. You have to pay it by necessity. Not thinking that you'll get reward by Allah that you're obeying a legitimate ruler. No.
Somebody's got a question about classical scholars, whether they had the same view as you. Any classical scholars had the same view as you about Muawiyah?
Oh, plenty. Abu Bakr, the Sahabi, declared him to be a kafir. Ali ibn Abi Talib was cursing him and condemning him on the pulpit. So what this kind of question is that?
Also, to the questioner, we get this asked quite a bit. The doc is working on an entire book on the subject. It's going to be...
leave that you say this is because they're fighting with Muawiyah. After Muawiyah, Al-Hasan al-Basri is on record saying, if one of these 3 or 4 was in Muawiyah, it will be a destructive sin, mubiqah, releasing him. First of all, that he by force took power from the Ummah, and if he would not have done that, it would have been shura until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Secondly, he publicly and openly adopted Ziyad as his brother, claiming it has been produced in individual, if the claim is true or not, it has been produced out of the wedlock. And the Messenger of Allah said clearly, and this was discussed widely, even Bani Umayyah objected to Umar that al-walad al-farash fil-ahl al-hajar. The son is attributed to the bed, not to the genealogy. No way. Even if the genealogy can be established by DNA. Only tahrim results from that, nothing else. But it cannot be inherited, cannot be carried the name. He will be called Ziyad ibn Sumayyah if he's really born out of wedlock. But in reality, he was born in wedlock with a man called Ubayd. Openly. So he's Ziyad ibn Ubayd, should not be attributed otherwise. Changing it to that is a major crime. Even accepting to deny that Ubayd is his father, at least as a bed, is a crime for that. And that's the reason Abu Bakr never took him after that until they both died. Abu Bakr died first. See, first of all, he declared his mother to be a Zaniya. He accepted that. And secondly, he has forsaken his own father. That's cannot be accepted. You cannot deny this nasab, even if it is due to wedlock. This is the Sharia nasab. And so on. And the third, the killing of Hujr. And the fourth was something else, a fourth one. So Al-Hasan al-Basri is after that. He said that later. So what kind of question that about Muawiyah? About plenty. That later donkey muqallideen try to horrify him and give him a nice picture. But let's wait for the complete book of Muawiyah. But meanwhile, read about Muawiyah commands the cursing of Ali on the pulpits. Read Samur ibn Jundub. You will find the takfir of Abu Bakr clearly there. So they have. And let's assume none of them did that at the time. Maybe fearing the sword, maybe by mistake. It doesn't matter. His acts are well known. And ultimately, we detected that he conspired with 2 other guys, Ka'b ibn Murrah and Abdullah ibn Hawala, in fabricating the hadith about Sayas al-Baqarah with this fitna. It's clearly fabricated. We have the research. It will come soon, inshallah. It will be shocking.
Just so I can go through questions in sequence. This question, you can dismiss as you like. Is it possible to accept Zionism as the dominant sect of Judaism today, given its widespread acceptance among the Yehud?
Is it
acceptable? Is it possible to accept that Zionism as the dominant sect of Judaism today, given its
What's
wide...
impossible to accept? Is it we mean rationally according to studies, or it's haram and halal? This description of the reality, see the evidences, and based on that, make your judgment. If the majority of Jews tend to be supportive of Israel and Zionism and so on, then you can say Jews are mostly Zionist, and hence they should be treated as all as hostile until proven otherwise. But we know there, for example, Naturai Kata are anti-Israel and not Zionist. And we know that the Mizrahi Jews are anti-Israel, extremely anti-Israel.
But also from Hukum Shara,
what's Hukum Shara? Hukum Shara has nothing to do with that.
You know what I'm saying? Well, with Hukum Shara, at the end of the day, even if they were Zionists, if you're in a non-Muslim land,
what do you mean the Hukum Shara about that Judaism is an abrogated religion, they ought to follow Muhammad Rasulullah is applied for all of them. That's it. What's the Hukum Shara about what?
No, when you said about Zionism, and in terms of treat them like that, but obviously it's a difference when you're
Zionism are hostile. So, but that says apply to, for example, to other Muslim Murtadeen, apply to Genghis Khan, which is a Jew, not a Zionist. I don't know. The question does not make any sense.
So hostile in the sense that they're in a camp that's antagonistic, but that doesn't give any license.
Belligerent. That says you can do acts of war.
In the case of war, obviously. So, for example, in Palestine, there would be an act of war. If it's outside of the domain, for example, where you have a covenant, then there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's applied to Zionists and Jews and the Chinese, everyone.
Just so there's no misunderstanding, because sometimes people
they regard all Jews as Zionists because the majority are Zionists. I don't know what the meaning of the question.
Okay.
Maybe you mean the one in Israel?
It's a static question.
Israel, they're carrying the citizenship of an entity which has to be removed. That's my Sharia point of view. The only way to have peace with them is to go to the original peace. The initial peace was what violates the initial peace and started the situation of war is the establishment of this entity. They have no right to establish entity and expel the Palestinian. The only peace, the Quran says, if they offer peace, complete peace, the one before hostility, then accept it. You cannot deny it. But what is the peace before hostility? The hostility is not the 67 war. Hostility is the existence of Israel itself. Even before the 67, many of them were considered as a pair of individual in hostility of expelling Palestinians from their land. But that was the responsible. That was really by the British, who was the occupier at that time. They allowed that. That's their plan, which they hid very nicely. But anyway, after establishing the mere existence of the state should not be accepted from Sharia point of view. Say we want peace. Peace, the only way is that you pack the luggage, close, and go. That's it. To serve yourself. In that case, this specific case like that, it is the entity itself is based on aggression. Establish the entity. Now some say they don't establish like when the British established, okay, or the American. So to have final peace with them, the Americans do not have the establishment, the British. To have final peace with the British, they have to remove that internal. Sorry, that was a mistake, and we want now peace. The Muslim, strictly speaking, a real Muslim entity would tell the Britain, we are hostile to you. You committed an aggression of establishing this entity. We will never be at peace with you until you remove this entity, or the entity disappears by earthquake or by war, whatever it is. So all your offering of peace is not acceptable. Just the mere fact that you ended your colonialism does not mean that peace has, because there's still some of the aggression is still there, active. But this is a philosophical question. The reality, what we see now, is clear now. So I don't know what the meaning of the question. It seems to be he's not thinking about.
Also, in New York, there's a lot of anti-Zionist Jews as well.
Yeah, that's the Natural Kata. In Arabic countries,
even other sects as well. Even secular Jews as well.
And the Mizrahi Jews are extremely anti-Israel, more than Natural Kata. They say they are praying day and night that Israel will disappear peacefully. But the Mizrahi Jews, they are encouraging Iran to. They are very angry that Iran stopped attacking Israel now. They say it's a mistake, the ceasefire should continue until they erase Israel from existence. because it's life threatening for the area and for the Jews themselves.
There's a guy, Alan Mizrahi, is Alon Mizrahi. He's a very, very articulate as well, anti-Israeli.
And there seems to be he's having essentially the Mizrahi behind him. Maybe not that sharp and extreme, but clearly they're with him. So Mizrahi Jews, we have the Naturai Qatar Jews, and we have the secular Jews.
Yeah, irrespective of what percentage, ultimately, the irritation is with the regime of Israel, and
with the entity,
not with individuals who are outside of the domain.
No. If they go outside, خلاص. Even the Zionist who goes outside, have a covenant of security in America, he's an American, not a.
Moreover, how many Christian evangelicals there are there? There are tons of them. They have, and again, they're very virulently anti-Islamic, but again, the same thing. You have a covenant of security with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So another quick one. Why did you leave the Hiwar channel? Someone's asked.
I don't leave it. They are not inviting. Well, we don't go to the people by gun and say how to make help. They are not. Ask it. Why didn't you invite us anymore? Cannot tolerate another point of view? Can you never get out of your sectarian or your partisan inclination? Yeah.
What's their background? I never see. I'm not familiar with them.
They're Ikhwani mixed, and now obviously they're supported mostly by Qatar. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Surprised that they'd ever let you on if they supported Qatar.
In time past, when Qatar was at the order of Saudi Arabia, obviously I'm aware about that, but a platform is available, which I can't say what I believe in clearly, and that's it. But I thought it became too much for them. They were no, this is too much now. Stop there, and they stopped. Simple. Next question.
Let me see if I can read this one.
But concerning the one asking about the Jews and Zionism, read the Muwala and Mu'ada. And this is not
okay. So I'm just going to read this out. If you want to make a sense of it, you can.
It's very easy. It is available at Docs, I think. If it's not, then I will ask Shabab to post the old version. I will edit it, but it will take time. So the existing one is quite good. To polish it and make it perfect. Inshallah, or near perfection. Perfection will never be achieved, but near perfection. At the card, if there's even if it's PDF, I think it's the type which you can copy and paste. Just paragraph by paragraph and put it to the translator, the free translator of Google. Or if you have a paid AI, you can give the whole book, say, translate it for me. And then after they summarize the ideas there. You will be surprised how good it is by AI now. Any good paid AI can do that. And that's because you can give even the PDF to the AI. Shabab, get AI, get used with that. It will bring a new world. It will give you such power, you're unbelievable. It doesn't mean that you trust the result because they can make hidden mistakes, they can be biased and so on, but at least stage number 1. Stage number 2, use your brain. Actually, stage number 0, use brain. If you're AI, stage number 1, use number 2, use your brain again to criticize the AI and check. And then if they question something dark, you can come with a structured question. You said so and so in paragraph so and so. I didn't understand it, or it seems you contradictory so and so. Yes, then we interact with that.
Okay. Next one isn't so much a question, just maybe a correction. The Dirk recommended a book regarding political structure of administration. ترتب الإدارة في النظام.
No, this is just getting all the documentation collected, even if fabricated hadith. He says this is fabricated even. He's just collecting them.
You said it says that you said it's by Dr. Hamidullah. There's no such title. He's saying that it's somebody else. It's Muhammad al-Hayy al-Qatani.
No. هذاك this, but Hamidullah is وثائق العصر النبوي or something like that. Muhammad Hamid.
Okay, so it's a title. He's got a title called "The First Constitution in the World and Collection of Political Documents." Okay,
possibly that's the name. I'm confused the name, but it's the one. That's one collected recently. Hamidullah passed just recently. I mean, in this last century, I think away. That's the one. Kitani is more classical. Kitani is maybe several centuries back. But it's good. It's good that he mentioned Kitani. It slipped my mind. Yeah, that's for references and documentation.
Okay. Let's see.
التراتيب الإدارية. So this is the title for the Kitani. So Hamidullah is another title, but it's more comprehensive in documentation. Al-Kitani may be more organized like fiqh. I'm not sure. We'll try to get the Kitani and discuss it with the research group, inshallah.
I'm not sure, somebody hasn't really given much details in his next question. It's saying, if today's subject permits, can you shed some light upon nasikh and mansukh in the context of ayahs of Quran?
That's in the book of Tawheed in very much detail. Go there.
Okay, so check the description, search through the PDFs of the Kitab Tawheed. It goes into some.
Let me give you a general principle, and then you check there. The general principle is that, first of all, no ayah of the Quran. There's two types of naskh: naskh al-hukm and naskh al-text. If the text is lifted away, like ayat al-rajm, then this automatically the hukm is gone away until we have a refutable evidence that hukm persists. Okay, that's number one. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
That's if the ayah is abrogated. Then this is automatically meaning the hukm is abrogated if the ayah is removed from the Quran. If there's dispute, if there's something like that, the Quran, but the Quran is again, ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسيها نأتي بخير منها أو مثلها. Now someone say, what is better than ayat al-rajm, which has been gone? And what's the evidence there was an ayat al-rajm except narration? There are plenty of narration about that, but the evidence for that must have been is that it's well established with said to do that Messenger Allah have stoned and so on for certain time. Al-Ghamidi, Juhaniya, and Ma'iz, and another woman. So 3-4 cases over. And narration is by Tawatur over these. So it was that. But that's after the Surah An-Nisa, the woman of you who commit adultery, get 4 witnesses and look them at home until they die. That need to be abrogated. And because of general principle abrogation, that no ayah will be abrogated hukman or better, unless it's replaced by a better ayah. In that case, because the ayah still in the Quran is not lifted, the hukum must be abrogated by a Quran. So there must be an ayah of rajm which came down and abrogated this one. So rajm was for some time enacted. So not only the tawatur that there was an ayah by Ubay ibn Ka'b and Umar and so on, many hadiths. In the Saqifa, I'm discussing this point very short because it's in the major hadith of Saqifa also mentioned. It's not only that, so because of that. So necessarily there was an ayat al-rajm. What is its wording? It has been forgotten, it is irrelevant. And the Prophet applied it. Then this was lifted and the ayah of 100 lashes for the adulterer and adulteress. Surah An-Nur was later revealed. And that's what stands until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So the promise of the man in Sakhman ayat al-Nusi نأتي بخير منها أو مثلها. Now the ayat al-Rajm is better than one locking the woman away. Why it is better? It seems to be harsher because it makes women and men equal. That one was only woman. No discussing of women or men what should be treated. That make them equal. That's very important principle. That's number one. Equally guilty, equally criminal. That's number one. Secondly, it is locking away until death, maybe dying, whatever mean, is better and faster. Yeah. And less painful than locking away, imprisonment. But imprisonment in the house. Meaning part of the house will be turned into a prison. That's a calamity also. So it's better in that sense. In a matter of hukum. The wording, we don't know. The wording it is gone. It must have been phrased to be as good as the ayatul locking the woman away. Then came الزاني والزاني فجلدوا كل واحد منهم 100 جلدة إلى آخره, and don't have any mercy for them in the deen of Allah. Abrogating all of that. Abrogating the rajm and abrogating the ayah was abrogated already by the rajm, but now this abrogate this for a woman looking. So all of that is gone. That's the order. Now the principle of naskh mentioned in the ayah. Now concerning hukum, now we said ayah being lifted, that's the prime example. Ayah being lifted. There's another example, but is rely on Aisha's narration that it was in the Quran. As we read, 10 known breastfeedings make haram. And then it was, according to Aisha, was abrogated by 5 readings with haram. And she said the sheet of it was under the bed of the Prophet, meaning it has been removed from the Quran. Aisha said still in the Quran, is not in the Quran. We have the Quran, we know it's in the Quran. Assuming that what Aisha reported is correct. So this is not there. So what the hukum? The hukum is gone. So what's remaining? 10 is abrogated by 5. 5 is abrogated now by, and Aisha was insisting when breastfeeding an adult to breastfeed 10 just to be in the cautious side. That's caution. But let us see what is abrogating. It's just general. Now it is any breastfeeding. According أمهاتكم من الرضاعة doesn't give any more details. So any رضاعة. Now the Sunnah clarify by not by abrogating, by specializing and clarifying. حديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تحرم المجة والمجتان ولا الرضعة ولا الرضعتان. So مجة or مجتان, just a shot in the mouth does not make it haram. And رضعة and رضعتان will not be. So 2 رضعas or 1 رضعة will not make haram. It must be 3 minimum. So now we can go with 3. If you want to be cautious, you go with 5. If you want to over cautious, go with 10. But this is not in the Quran. It's gone. So you could see in the Quran, there's nothing about the number of rad'as. Let's go. So the Hanafi are right that 3 rad'as are enough for tahrim. You don't need 5. According to the hadith of Aisha, because hadith Aisha does not say the Messenger of Allah said, so he restricted it. No, it is the Quran, and the ayah is not there, so it has been lifted. So the hukum is gone. So they are right. It is 3 only for tahrim. And what's the rad'a? It's clarified. It's a filling one with a baby. To fill the baby, you have really to have and the best definition for that and the clearest is that the breast is full overnight, and in the morning you feed the baby. In the case of baby, it's clear rad'a. Because of adult is fed in a cup and so on. That's a controversial issue of feeding the adults. We are not discussing now. Leave that now. That when an ayah in the Quran, still the text there, and another ayah they claim to be abrogating it. That's cannot be accepted until it is impossible to work with them both together. Because there could be, there is a specialization of the general and restriction of the absolute. If it is neither of these and by necessity of reason impossible to do both to work, then we have to say abrogation. Otherwise, other solution must be said. You cannot undermine the ruling of Allah in one ayah by another ayah, except dictated by necessity of reason. The prime example is قاتلوا في سبيل الله الذين يقاتلونكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين. Fight those for the sake of Allah, those who fight you, meaning those who initiated the fight, initiated the war, and don't transgress, because otherwise you will be transgressed. And Ibn Abbas explained that clearly. He added women and children in this case because this comes with other evidences, but this evidence is really for the fighter. For those initiated war. And he added Ibn Abbas in his hadith clearly say, and those who did not initiate war against you. Now, many claim this has been abrogated by Ayat al-Sayf at the end of in the opening of Surah al-Tawbah. اقتل المشركين أو بآية تقتل المشركين كافة كما قتلوا. This is all false. This is not true. Because we could say this general one, if it is really general, but the reality is not general. Neither اقتل المشركين كافة كما يقاتلون كافة, because it doesn't abrogate that. Because you fight the mushrikeen as a community, as an alliance, as if they fight you as one alliance. So treat the alliance as one entity, not only the one present in the battlefield. All the alliance comes in the same way. Unless they break our alliance and say, we have nothing to do with this alliance, we are out. Then they are no more hostile. So this kaffa. So it doesn't contradict them, because as they fight you all together as an alliance, as a block. So that's not abrogated. Even the meaning has not. The one in Surah Al-Tawbah also is not Jannah, is also the mushrikeen which broke their covenant and so on. So they were hostile initially. And the claim of the guys that it is generally killing everyone is nonsense. We are answering that now in a research about Jihad al-Nusra in detail, point for point, word for word, all the 15 first ayah until the end. It's impossible. It's not as general as they claim. Unless you cut the ayah in pieces, the way the disease of the fuqaha since the time of Sahaba. Some Sahaba did that. and after that it became like the general disease. That doesn't work this way. But even assume that's general. اقتل المشركين حيث ثقفوهم. كل المشرك everywhere you meet them. Restricted by قاتلوا في سبيل الله الذين يقاتلونكم. Because this is general, absolute, and this is restricted. And they can work together by saying this absolute is just referring to the special. Remember what I told you earlier, because the قاتلوا الذين في سبيل الذين يقاتلونكم is earlier than اقتلوا المشركين حيث ثقفتموهم in Surah At-Tawbah. But as the mushrikeen مش there actually the one who started the war anyway according to Surah. But let's assume we accept their fallacy. This is for all mushrikeen, unrestricted. Allah will tell you, but I told you whom you are allowed to قاتل. But the ayah itself contains after that which shows that it is only who initiated war and broke their covenants anyway. So claiming that generality is false. But even if assume generality, it is no. So the general will never abrogate the special, and the absolute never abrogate the restricted, even if it has come later. Because it always say, with the restriction, I already told you. I'm just stating it now generally, but I gave a restriction before. Because necessity of reason dictate, you cannot, the general cannot abrogate the special, and the absolute cannot abrogate simply because they can work together. According to our principle, that the general remains general until you specify. It has been specified. If that's specified before or after is irrelevant. It is specified. Essentially, if it is really as they claim, it's general or absolute. It's Allah telling you with the condition and restriction I mentioned earlier. Go back to that. We are not going to mention the restriction every time we mention the general. For example, when the Messenger of Allah in Khaybar said, commenting on something, إنما أمرت, I have been excluded order to fight the people until they say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Some people say this is one which is general, every until ويقيموا الصلاة والزكاة. But they cannot deny that after that, the ayah with jizya came. So this is not as general as it absolute as it came. Second, they can't deny it is after the one in Baqarah that was in Khaybar, and this narrated by Tawatur. Besides, it is a hadith, it's not an ayah. According to the ayah of the Quran, does not abrogate. But even if you assume the wrong madhab that ayah of the and hadith mutawatir can abrogate, well established can abrogate an ayah, the hukum of ayah, in that case also the same. It is general after. So as the Messenger was saying, I have been commanded to fight those who the people until they say La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. But those who started the fight against me, and after when the fight starts, I will call them again to Islam. If they accept, like in the hadith which we make in the book of Tabi, of in the research of Hijrah and Islamic citizenship and the right of self-determination, and invite them to Islam. If they accept Islam, invite them to become citizen, become part of the federation. If not, then they remain independent, but they're obliged to do all Islam. And if not, then I offer them the issue of jizya, so they become confederate under Islamic dominance and control. And then the hadith also specifies, which is also mutawatir, as we and this is much later, definitely, because that's what the Prophet specifically told the people going to Mu'tah in the 8th year. And if we're dealing with the fortification and so on, and this if they cultivate the fortification and they offer a peace, then make an agreement. But don't make the covenant in the name of Allah and His Messenger, because you don't know if that Allah Messenger will approve. But make it in your name, and you have to obey the covenant. But it is, you should not attribute to Allah and Messenger. See, this is our covenant, this is our agreement, and you are ordered to fulfill the covenant anyway. What is the covenant about? By agreement. So all these details are mentioned later. So clarifying, so this is actually just simply about naskh, generally like that. You see the idea. So two seemingly contradictory hukum, seemingly, cannot be regarded as genuinely contradictory unless there's no way to let them both work using a principle of specializing the general and restricting the absolute, or tafsir al-mutlaq. Like, for example, just we discussed the issue and say, al-raghib say qunut, meaning submission, etc., full submission, etc. That may be the general meaning, but the ayah of salihat, qanitat, hafidh Allah ila akhiri, in the context of marriage, meaning here must be restricted to the obedience, the meaning of obedience. If the qunut, if that general meaning is actually meaning is only restricted to the rejection of intercourse without any justification. Again, tafsir with the same principle. You keep it general, yeah. But we know from qunut is not like qunut to Allah, must be different. So limited. What limitation are there? We see what talked about our two wives. Up to the limit of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the other hadith and the ayat show that it is it has to be restricted to her. That's tafsir, that's bayan of a word which will have various meanings, a wide range of meanings. So we cannot say this ayah abrogates this or this abrogates this. They have to work together, and then one of them which is appeared to be ordering qunut in general is actually not in general. Is this qunut here obedience in matter of intercourse? Otherwise, the other meaning of qunut, which is being upright, being well behaved, mannered, and so on. صالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله. So qanitat in here is that they obedience in what they are obliged to obey. That's intercourse. Other possibly other things if they are obliged, if we can find the Sharia clarification of obligation. Yeah.
Okay, one last question, then we call it a day. Before it was, sorry. What is the point of the Shura Council? Is it just for consultation or for more than that? Because the role of the Shura Council is not very clear.
Which Shura Council?
If it is Islamic, if you have an Islamic state and you have a Shura, what would the role be?
The Shura, there's nothing to be in a certain council. It could be all the people who will vote, popular vote. And this seems to be becoming feasible in modern times.
And what would the parameters be? So, for example, it's not going to be on...
And just to clarify this point, don't think there's a council or something like that is a must. No, it could be every issue of relevance could be prepared by committees and so on, and then sent to a popular vote. Now, with the communication and so on, a system, maybe with blockchains and so on, which verify and so on in a really strict and a way which cannot be. And the people could be giving an ID and things like that, and the card, etc., which exclude fraud, etc., 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 etc. Can be by popular vote. So that will be done. No, the Shura Council is to account the government, whatever the Constitution specify for it. Generally, what they call generally the structure which had been merged by I mean the procedural structure, the ways and means which have developed over the few centuries past, since 500 years roughly, is that the elected bodies who represent the people are responsible for what they call legislation, and a president, which is or a government which is either elected directly or have to be approved by the parliament, like in a ministerial system or something like that, and then judiciary, which is independent. So splitting that. In time past, the Imam had all these things, except the Shura. He has to make consultation with the Muslim, get their approval without specific technicality. Now, even the judicial power has been taken for him and given to professional, independent judge, which the structure has to be established, the ways and procedure, a certain. And there are various structures in various countries and so on. Some has to prove it to be more effective than others, etc. So the general procedure that is Shura is not only accountability, questioning, interviewing the administration, like the American Parliament, but also legislation. Yeah. The difference is that in Islam, legislation would be not according to whims, but every piece of the legislation is either ways and procedure. It has to be clarified in the introduction that these ways and means are all of them basically halal, and these have been chosen because they're most efficient and so on. That's ways and means. The ahkam itself, haram and prohibited and so on, have to be proven from Sharia that you can deduce from the Sharia with a good istinbat, minimum. But you have to refer to Sharia from Islam, Quran and Sunnah in the abstract sense. This has to be details or usul and so on. But that's it. It is not just the majority whims. Like, for example, there's no way a Muslim Shura Council will vote to allow regard homosexuality as allowable. No. Or vote, for example, to cancel in the case of someone's caught committing zina and with four witnesses, all the technicalities, that he will not be punished by 100 lashes, just be punished by maybe by scandalization and so on. The 100 lashes in public, but it is different in public. But scandalization is enough. No, it's not enough. Yeah. So nothing can be adopted otherwise. In a secular parliament, they can adopt, they can stick with that for, like, for example, in Britain, homosexuality, if someone's caught proven to be homosexual, he will be punished by prison and things like that, including the one who invented the encryption machine and so on, died in prison. What's the name of machine?
Forgot it. There was a film made about this. I forgot it. Slipped my mind. No.
Alan Turing. And he died in prison. Later on, that was permissible. So the punishment was cancelled. And even now, the government even apologized to him and so to his memory for this mishap of the past. So it's according to desire. In Islam, there's no well established, according to Ibn Hazm, it's just up to 10 lashes, no more than that, and possible imprisonment or something, but nothing else. That's matter of ijtihad to do, because it's for him, there's no had administered for that. On all the other points of view, he refutes. Qiyas to zina and all of things, there is not, qiyas is invalid. But you can disagree or agree. If you agree it is a zina, then it will be 100 lashes and so on. But this is, when a parliament discussed that, it will be discussed based on what the fuqaha say in time past, which Quran Sunnah indicate and so on. You see my point? Not because the taste of the time differed and so on. No, it is not like that. It's not like that. That's it. Otherwise, the law will be, as long as the law is valid, it will be administered. If it is cancelled by better law or better ijtihad, and we detect that ijtihad was faulty, then it's, like, for example, ijtihad was for many centuries, for madahib, Hanbali, I think, or I am not sure, Hanafi, is that they deduced the claim that based on a fabricated or a weak story that Abu Bakr said, I don't know how to punish that, except that Allah, the people of Lut, sent stones from heaven. So you take him to the highest place and drop him down. Because the story is that the people of Lut, Jibreel took them to the heaven and brought them. Even that's not well established. And Ibn Hazm showed that his story cannot be true, is fabricated. But even what Allah did to Qawm Lut is a divine action. Divine action is not to be mutated. Allah has liberty. In Islam, there is no punishment by burning someone alive. There's a retribution. If you burn someone, then he can kill someone by burning. He may be killed by burning, if it can be done exactly the same way. If not controlled, then he will be killed by usual, by the sword or whatever standard execution mean. So that's definitely, but many stuck with that until now. Even Daesh, I think, applied that. The Shafi'i made qiyas and said 100 lashes. I think this is not a good ijtihad, because it's not, it's luwat is not zina. Zina is different. Have another repercussions. As type. So the qiyas is invalid. So remains only the prohibition, that is a sin. The question remains is, if someone is found like that, I would say the best point of view will be if it is found and 4 witnesses are there, because it's matter related to dignity and honor, so it should be as tough as zina. 2 will not be enough. Would be, but someone called 2 is enough, because for the case of murder, we have 2 will be enough. Okay, 2 witnesses and so on, and then will be just scandalization, because there is no had and misal, and maybe the punishment up to 10 lashes is permissible for the one in charge to administer, but no more than 10, except for a prescribed had. That's Ibn Hazm point of view. So you have various points of view. None of them is based on desire and hawa. It's based on certain people thought it's an evidence. It's not an evidence. In the case of the British one, in time past, it was an imprisonment, not based on any evidences. Just by, it's despicable, okay, that we imprison. But no scandalization in that sense, like in case of zina. And now nothing, based also on desire, hawa. No reference to revelation. They don't refer to revelation anyway. It's just act of parliament, or the will of the king, who's the shadow of the divine on earth, or something like that. Or some church council agreed on that sometime, because they're having the Holy Spirit making them infallible, or in nonsense like that. That's all. That's not evidence which stand and can be adopted by Shura Council. But that's usually what the Shura Council is restricted to the issues of legislation, budgeting, things like that. And the day-to-day exclusion and the other running of the affairs is for government or president and so on, top administration, executive, high executive, with certain restriction. Type some presidential system, some prime minister system, some a mix of both, like France. We have the president here, he head the council of ministers, so he has a prime minister or a minister president who has to be approved by the parliament, and all acts of the president have to be, except few, have to be countersigned by the prime minister. But still, the president is the dominant figure, especially since but the prime minister is important, because almost everything has to be countersigned. Maybe some regard that system as a good one. It gives more safeguard than the American system, especially if you get some mentally deranged guy like Trump. Maybe. The system of the Americans may be more efficient and fast acting. Now in France, it's a bit grudging, because nothing can be done without both the prime minister, who has the approval of the parliament and can be sacked by the parliament relatively easily, especially in France. They're trigger happy with prime ministers. But you could, for example, in the case of prime minister, you could think about a procedure which the German invented after the Second World War. They called something constructive misstrauensvotum, the constructive vote of no confidence. What is this? Is that it says the parliament cannot pronounce the vote of no confidence except with the absolute majority. That's fine, but not just vote for no, we have no confidence, by choosing another one, putting someone on the table. So they have an alternative. It's a constructive work. This guy we don't trust. Whom to trust? How to run the affairs? Bring me someone and get someone getting the absolute majority. Then the other one is declared to be, and this one is then the prime minister in the system of France, in the system of Germany, and you can combine the system of France. Is that then this one the president also has some authority on that. They can pronounce the no vote on no confidence and present someone else, but not as a choice which the president has to accept. No, as a suggestion. So the chosen person is only a suggestion to the president. He can accept it. Most likely he will accept. He is not stupid to go against the majority of the parliament. But there may be weighty reason for him. Maybe he cannot synchronize with this man at all. They hate each other. They cannot work together. But it's not binding him. But what's binding is that the old prime minister is out. Now he has either to take the one chosen by the parliament. That's modification I suggest for if I have a more ideal, more streamlined system. Constructive vote of no confidence, then that one chosen is already a suggestion a very strong suggestion for the president. But the president still have the right to go, no, I don't want that. I will appoint someone else. This may lead to a conflict, and the parliament will object and then make a vote of no confidence against that, and it may go back and forth. But you expect this will be like a bit of safeguard for the authority of the president, a little bit, and you expect most president will be sensible enough to accept that one suggested by and you accept the majority of the parliament will discuss with the president, and before that, and it is that doesn't happen like people are slashing muscle and fight against each other, except in extreme situation, and then almost it's impossible to manage anything. But this will give enough safeguard. So constructive vote of confidence with a suggested prime minister to president. I guess we have a president. Otherwise, it will be then the prime minister will be and the president will be just a symbolic man, which I think is highly undesirable. Supposed to just the president said, receive the ambassadors, sign the laws. It's just a symbolic. It's some kind of a replacement of kings which have been removed from power completely. There's no need for that. I think it's just creating a job, which is. So if there's a president, especially if it's chosen by the people directly, should be given more power, but not as much power as the American president. But all the stuff can be then facing a vote of no confidence, provided it's constructive. And then the president has to choose, either choose this one or find another alternative. And usually this will be connected to negotiation, majorities, and so on, dealing with parties and so on, which is all good. It's not bad. It slows the process a little bit, that's good. But it's always means and procedures again. Hukm Shar'i is clear. The ultimate authority is for the Ummah, exercising through their various options, various ways and means. And the ways and means which we chosen, but the one which has proven itself through historic application to be the most effective one. And this is the one, the election process and so on is one of the most, and the general election process is the most effective one. It should be now improved everywhere in the world by voting through blockchain and so on, and everyone who is entitled to vote must have a physical card plus a code plus maybe a voting device, which can be in every computer, in which you have to put your fingerprint or iris. Computer could be divided with that, or the small piece which can do that. So nobody else can vote in your behalf. And the moment you vote, the system registers that you vote in that place, you cannot vote in another place. And if someone is dead, nobody will be able to put the thumb or the eye there, plus the card and so on. The card can be someone inherit, the family can have it. And they're obliged, obviously, to return back to the state. But if they don't, then nobody will be able to use it, just a card. So you could have safeguards now with modern technology. Very good one. So all these issues about fraud and mail problem and so on can be solved. But to get that really boxed, it needs really further development in blockchain and security and voting device, which is happening bit by bit. For example,
well, as I say, where there's a will, there's a way. Because the West only has this activity once every 4 years to appoint a ruler who. And
then when we have this voting by this controlled mean and so on, we can very well in certain crucial issues and so on, we can have open even popular vote in many questions. But you still have to have a council because he discussed the laws, analyze it, phrase it, discuss it 3 times and so on, and then the final law would be publicized for popular vote. Or some laws at least, or the president insists, no, we'll give it to popular vote or something like that, make it more flexible in the system, and then people will be able to vote and we see yes or no.
Well, one question, I want to make this the last question before we do Palestine updates, but in the West, you have the issues being discussed. It's usually sensational. So, for example, if you look at the far right, they fixate on certain touch topics, so immigration, so that they can push a very nefarious type of agenda or more harsh type of agenda, and they have a lot of stats which are either fabricated, like how Trump does. He just makes rubbish up and then dismisses other things as fake news. a Khilafah, would it clamp down on this kind of stuff? Because you're going to have the
No.
requirement.
The right way is that you should establish social platforms or platforms which are protected by the state, which are obliged to allow everyone to publish, and no algorithm of shadowing and blocking and preventing, and let the
But how
mind.
about in terms of fake news? In terms of people actually,
The other one will say it's fake news and bring it there.
okay. I mean, because there is a question about
Because
having some kind of penalties.
these guys represent usually interests of Zionists, which the main media is behind it, and they control the media. And the platforms, social platforms, who could expose that, is still controlled by these interests, and they have the obligation and so on to interfere. This obligation should be cancelled. Like, for example, Twitter. The government could approach Twitter and say, give me the user or the connection to this user and so on for nefariously. No, that should be prohibited. No, I not give you until a court decide this guy has publicized things which are criminal and have been with the probability, balance of probability proven to be touching a criminal issue. Like, for example, calling for murder of a certain group openly and clearly and things like that. That will be obviously, or calling for Asabiyya Jahiliyyah. This tribe should be exterminated and things like in that clear way. Otherwise, you publish against him, and we will not shadow him and will shadow the counter.
Ultimately, an Islamic society, as if people start becoming invested in,
let it work dynamically. It will work.
Yeah, the understanding will be raised anyway, inshallah, as people start to get.
Look, I'll give you an example. When things were mutilated by Muawiyah, he's the first one to issue a decree that nobody should narrate hadith and do qas. Qas is meaning mentioning the ghazawat and so on in the masajid and so on without his permission. You see how the rabbit is running, as the Germans say. This way, he wanted to prevent any counterpoint way except the one he is broadcasting. This should not be in his authority, and the only way is that to prohibit the state and its authority from interfering with khutbah al-Jum'ah. Say explicitly, the masjid and the place of worship are a free platform for the people to use, obviously for the believer of that. But the social platforms are similar, because we have now in modern time, alhamdulillah, a solution for that. The non-public platforms, non social programs, are owned by certain companies. They have to have these limitations. Not the limitation now the government is trying. Like, for example, the Americans try to do the issue of anti-Semitism and so on, and regard it as punishable and things like that. Even if it is so, then the platform is not allowed to have an algorithm, etc. And possibly maybe making the platforms somehow connected with the parliament through a public corporation like the BBC, but better than the BBC. BBC is again ultimately is given limited editorial password. It is made by a trick, but the BBC model in theory should have been good because it has its own finances, not even depending upon the parliament. But that's the theory. But seems to be in practice, certain problems has happened there, so that the Zionists could sneak there, and that's because the budget and so on is so they are not depending upon ads. That's a good aspect, but the problem somehow the editorial freedom, because they are like a corporation, like the newspaper. They are not like a social platform. If it's like a social platform with this structure of the administration, it could have been much better, could solve the problem. But also with things, basic freedoms and specified in a constitution. So the usual majority in the parliament can't play with that. You have to make a constitutional change, and then any constitutional change submitted to parliament needs a very high majority and possibly approval of vote. And this would, the moment someone starts in this direction, it becomes smelly, and then there will be a public campaign and a huge discussion. That's the only way. And ultimately, the people are the ultimate, the Ummah will be the ultimate who exercises Shura. And the exercise will be the near to perfection. The more points of view are available for discussion.
Okay, let's I'm gonna stop the Zoom now so we can do the Palestine update. Oh, sorry, I'll stop the live stream.
Yeah.
Okay.